Hello and welcome to Staying Home, your revolutionary guide to the Green New Deal. Today, we have our Red State Special. We're going to be with Merav Ben David from the great state of Wyoming. If you've never been to Wyoming, get over to Wyoming as soon as possible because it's one of the most beautiful places on the entire face of the earth. And we have Matthew Park from Change Tennessee. He narrowly lost his state legislature run, I think by a couple dozen votes. And so he started a new organization to change Tennessee, progressive candidates across Tennessee. We've had Marquita Bradshaw on this program, an absolute firebrand and incredible campaigner who won her nomination for the Senate seat in Tennessee. So Matthew Park from Change Tennessee, or Change TN, we're going to hear from him about what does it take to move the needle in red states. And the same thing is coming to us from Merav Ben David, an ecology scientist from Wyoming who's running for Senate against Cynthia Lummis, who is an absolute train wreck of an oil and gas fossil fuel promoting, a wholly owned subsidiary of the fossil fuel industry is Cynthia Lummis sitting in the Senate in Wyoming. And Wyoming is one of those places, look, if we could grab a Senate seat out of Wyoming, we could tip the balance of power in this nation. So we need to start to pay attention to what the arguments are in red states and what are the politicians on the ground saying in red states, those so-called red states. How do we start to chip away at the facade of this incredible tyranny and imbalance in America? As we know, the majority of Americans do not want Donald Trump, do not want fascism, do not want authoritarianism, right? There's a slim margin, a small group of people who are currently controlling this nation because they control gerrymandering and because they control the Senate. Two parts of the constitutional democracy in America that don't favor populist votes, that don't favor the majority of the people. We have to start to chip away in those places. So Merav Ben David from Wyoming and Matthew Park from Change TN have some thoughts and ideas about how that's going to happen. So please stay tuned, stay with us. So we hear all the time about Republicans and Donald Trump and people saying, I'm not a scientist, and I'm not a scientist, and I don't know what I'm talking about because I'm not a scientist, and don't ask me about climate change because I'm not a scientist, don't ask me about the weather because I'm not a scientist. Well, as it turns out, there is at least one scientist running for office for Senate in the great state of Wyoming, one of my favorite states in the Union, and that is Merav Ben David, running against Cynthia Lummis, who is a train wreck. But Merav Ben David, welcome to Staying Home with Josh Fox. So excited to have you on. Okay. Talk about this ad that you ran that has gone oddly viral. Bill McKibben tweeted it out. A number of other people that just says, I am a climate scientist, and that you're running for office. Let's talk about this.
I am a scientist. I have been a scientist for nearly 40 years now. I'm a wildlife ecologist. I study the effects of global change, various aspects of global change on animals and their ecosystems, including the effects of climate change on polar bears in the Arctic Ocean. So I am a scientist, and being a scientist and studying the effects of global change on animals was one of the main motivators that got me to first join advocacy groups, because I realized that just collecting the data and sharing it is not enough. We need to do more. I need to do more. So I joined Citizen Climate Lobby as one of the groups I've been working with to try and change how we, produce energy and make sure that we do it justly, so the cost of all this transition doesn't end up on the, on the poor people's pockets. Right. And so, and then more recently, I realized that I have an obligation as a citizen of this world to do more, because I can do more, and jumped into politics. I have to admit that it's a very steep learning curve.
But you're taking on Cynthia Lummis, who was the congressperson from Wyoming. And Wyoming is one of those two states in the union, or maybe three, that has one congressperson and two senators, right? So it's actually overrepresented in the Senate and underrepresented in the Congress because of the number of people who live in Wyoming. I think it's something like 500,000 people in the entire state. Wyoming, also one of the most astoundingly beautiful places on earth, and one of the worst destroyed places in terms of fracking and coal mining and all the other extractive industries that are ravaging through so much of Wyoming. Talk a little bit about what it means to be a climate campaigner in Wyoming, and what does that mean in terms of your policies about extractive industry when that is such a core part of what's going on in Wyoming and such a devastation to Wyoming.
Right. So, the market for the products of Wyoming is declining. It's not declining because any environmental group has done anything or any legislature from Wyoming changed the regulation. The industry, the coal and oil and gas industries are going down. They're going down because they're not profitable, because the world demand is going down, and people see it. People in Wyoming, the people who rely on this as a source of income, are losing their jobs. People are, small towns, Wyoming, are basically emptying out. The one thing I hear on the campaign trail, the one thing I'm hearing on the campaign trail is school board members running for election, running again and again and again. The message is we are facing huge budget cuts. Our schools are going to, we won't be able to function. We won't be able to offer the remaining kids the education that our Constitution guarantees for them.
Right.
Every single election candidate forum that I've been to in the last month or so, I say, let the school board people go first. They like to do the Senate candidates first because, to honor us. And my point is no. Have the school board people go first because they frame the problem better than I could ever do it.
Meaning that Wyoming needs a new form of economy, not oil and gas, which is declining and falling apart. Wyoming also has the potential for wind resource and even solar. I know there are solar companies, one of them started by a good friend of mine, John Fenton, and his son, out there in Thermopolis. Talk about what ecological impacts have happened to Wyoming because of climate change or because of the effects of oil and gas on the state.
Right. So we say in Wyoming, and that's something that everybody would agree on, regardless of affiliation with any political party, is the one thing that is really important to us as Wyomingites is wide open spaces and public lands. We even have our own state public lands day that was passed in 2019. So this is something that is very pertinent, very current, and all Wyomingites agree on. And when you try to drive around, and an oil company or a gas company bought the mineral list, you have no access to that land. You don't have access to the land. They put roads in, they put gates on, and you cannot get there. And so in terms of the one thing that we can, and also all these extractive industries ruin wildlife habitat. Again, something that is really important to us in Wyoming is a viable wildlife population. So it's definitely not the best industry. It's not very compatible with what we cherish in Wyoming. And you're right, Wyoming is the most gorgeous places in the world. So there are other opportunities. There are a lot of opportunities in Wyoming, even in new types of energy production, relying on non-nuclear, semi-nuclear thorium reactors. I just learned of a new one that is being developed on helium and lithium reactors that actually Wyoming has both a lot of thorium and the highest deposit of helium in the whole world. So, we have...
As well as hot springs for geothermal.
Yes, I've just been in Thermopolis, so we need to have a different vision of what we can do in Wyoming, and we need to do it.
You're watching Staying Home with your Revolutionary Guide to the Green New Deal. I'm Josh Fox. My guest is Merav Ben-David. Merav running for Senate in the great state, the most beautiful state of Wyoming. Merav, what brought you to Wyoming?
Position. I applied for faculty positions in many universities across the United States. I did my PhD in Alaska, and I stayed for another 5 years as a researcher. And then after a very interesting experience in the Wrangell St. Elias ice fields, I realized I needed a real job. And so I started applying. I applied for many faculty positions. I got several offers. And I have to be honest with you and with your listeners that the one reason I chose Wyoming is that I can ski 9 months of the year.
You can ski a lot in Wyoming, I think. And where is that location for you?
I live in Laramie, Wyoming, which is the University of Wyoming. And it's a lovely, lovely place. Unfortunately, right now we are experiencing one of the worst wildfires we had in a long time. And so, but in general, it's a fantastic place to.
So you have a card catalog behind you. Is that because you're in a university right now? Because not many people have a card catalog behind with the internet these days. I don't see card catalogs very often. But tell us about where you are now and what's it like to be out on the campaign trail in Wyoming?
So I'm on the campaign trail right now. I'm in a small town in northern Wyoming called Worland, and I'm using the Wi-Fi of the public library, very generous of the public library to allow me to use the Wi-Fi to talk to you guys. So that whole card.
Right.
Yeah, it's part of the library. This is a room that is not often used anymore because they have all the computers and modern technology up front, but they let me use this room. So I really
So you're in
Worland.
Worland. Yes, I know Worland. I've been all across the state of Wyoming, and it has some of the most extraordinary changes topographically, from Great Plains to mountain ranges to obviously Yellowstone and the Grand Tetons to wild desert. It is an absolutely extraordinary place. What do you think it will take to change Wyoming folks' attitude about politics? Because obviously Wyoming has been a very solid red state for a very, very long time. What issues are you campaigning on to move it into a different direction?
So everybody in Wyoming knows that we have to diversify the economy, expand our portfolio. Everybody, we've been talking about it. They've been talking about it even before I joined 21 years ago. It's no news. There are actually plans and ideas out there. It just needs to, the people realize we need the political will to do it. Current leadership is failing us because they have personal interests in the fossil fuel industry. Most of the legislatures, both in state legislation and our representatives have interests in this one industry, and they're basically driving us in a rut. If you think about the Oregon Trail, we have the ruts of the wagons there on the rocks, and if you just imagine that, they're driving us in that rut, the fossil fuel rut, off a cliff. And I think it's a time to take the reins. In Wyoming, we like horse metaphors, so I'll take that. And we need to take the reins, and we need to change the course of our future. And that's basically, we need somebody that has a different vision, that has the skills to look and evaluate what kind of technologies are out there, what can be the next big thing. And as I mentioned, there are a lot of ideas out there that are excellent. And then also be a Wyomingite and know what people here like and care about, and navigate the course to find those things that will work in Wyoming, because we really do want to keep Wyoming.
So as a person running as a Democrat, what are the things that you feel are uphill battles in terms of getting acceptance for Democratic positions in Wyoming?
I think, as I say, people know the problems we are facing. People are not happy. I mean, people have kids in school. People are losing jobs. So people are not happy even in Wyoming. I think the key is to offer alternatives, because if you say, oh, we will diversify the economy, but you don't give concrete examples of how that can be done, why should people believe you?
So as a scientist, what are the things that need to be done now on the economy, but also in terms of climate change and all the other impacts that you must be seeing as an observer of nature and ecology?
Yes, absolutely. This is the biggest threat we have. I mean, we have an immediate threat in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic that we need to deal with on the short term, but climate change is definitely the greatest threat to our planet and to Wyoming specifically. But I mean, as a scientist recording the effects of climate change on various ecosystems, I tell you, we can't be too optimistic. We have to take action. We have to take action now. And I think that the message
What are the things that you're seeing as an ecologist?
In Wyoming?
Yeah.
Look, Wyoming is a near desert. Most of Wyoming, the basins of Wyoming are basically desert. Rely heavily on snowpack, and we rely heavily on the major rivers for irrigation, if you talk about agriculture. And when we lose our glaciers and we lose our rainfall, this is one of the worst droughts this year. I mean, we have had droughts before, but they're getting much, much worse. And this year was a classic example. We started the spring with 150% snowpack, and we are in September in the worst drought we had in decades, even worse than 12-1. You know,
so this is a worsening of the extremes on both sides.
Absolutely, yeah. So my point is that people see that, people realize it, but people are not going to change their ways unless you offer them alternatives. And I think that's what my message is, that there are alternatives, there are good alternatives, and we should just invest in them.
So with 1 minute left, tell us how people can interact with your campaign, and what do you wish for in the last 5 weeks here?
So what we need is people to volunteer to contact Wyomingites. Phone bank for us. We use a lot of text messaging, and we do a lot of outreach. I personally make a point when I go traveling around the state to talk to everybody. In fact, I've had lunch in a very, very, very Republican restaurant, or owned by very strong Republicans, and we had a lovely conversation. In fact, they took my campaign handouts to give their other customers. So
wonderful.
My point is, we can talk to people. We need to talk to people. And if there are other people out there listening to you, they want to help the campaign, of course, you can always donate, because that will help us get TV ads. I want to put TV ads on Fox News.
Yeah. Well, the ad is great. Maybe we'll be able to run a piece of it. But thank you so much, Merav Ben-David, and good luck. I mean, Wyoming definitely needs a different political future than the one than its recent past, for certainly.
Right. And okay. Wyoming is a pioneer state. We are the first ones to give women or acknowledge the right of women to vote. We have done a lot of pioneering work in the past, and we can do it again.
All right, wonderful. I hope so. Thank you so much, and for being with us. And we'll see you, and good luck. Keep us posted. Absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, you're welcome. Bye. There you have it. The first interview we've ever done from a library in Worland, Wyoming. If you haven't been to Worland, it's worth checking it out. Go, and I'll see you soon. Thank you. We'll be right back. You're tuned in to Staying Home, Your Revolutionary Guide to the Green New Deal. I'm Josh Fox. My guest right now is Matthew Park, who narrowly lost a race by, I think, a few dozen votes for state assembly in Knoxville, in Tennessee. And now he has founded a revolutionary new organization called Change Tennessee. He's working closely with Marquita Bradshaw. You'll remember Marquita Bradshaw was on this program right before her historic upset victory. I think she was outspent 17 gajillion to 1. I think that was the official statistic in her race. And now she is running for senator in Tennessee. And she's an incredible grassroots activist with a huge and a very, very important story about fighting a Superfund site in Memphis. But Matthew has started this Change Tennessee, and tell us a little bit about the history of this, and tell us a little bit about the race. It's incredibly close.
Yeah.
Heartbreaker.
Yeah. 25 votes. It actually came down to the provisional ballot counting. So we had to gather the ceremony of that. But once we walked out of the room and we knew that, hey, we lost by 25 votes because they announced it in the room. We did two things. I went on vacation after campaign.
Of course.
But while we were there, my campaign manager and I started talking like we've built this tremendous infrastructure to pull progressives out of the woodwork here in Tennessee. We've built this infrastructure. We know now we have data that most people in Tennessee support a Green New Deal. And not only the Green New Deal as a package, they support every single piece of it by a majority except for the jobs guarantee. So knowing that, and that data comes from Data for Progress. So knowing that,
what does that mean? What does that mean? Because there's a lot of different tenets from the Green New Deal, right? There's justice, there's jobs, there's renewable energy, there's all the different aspects of it, and there are many different Green New Deals. But how did you find this out, and what does that mean in your sense of the political spectrum right now?
So I think there are 18 core tenets of the Green New Deal, right? And if you go to Data for Progress on their website, they list out every single one of those tenets. They let you see the data by congressional district. And when we looked at that, again, the only one that people don't support by a majority in Tennessee is the jobs guarantee.
Well, now, did they support it as a whole, or just they were ticking off different aspects and didn't know that that's what the Green New Deal was?
Yeah, different aspects for sure. Us progressives down in the Southeast, and especially the rural Southeast, we're used to having to package things differently, right?
Right, of course.
But when we looked at that, knowing that Tennessee really does have this huge progressive movement that's happening, we wanted to enable that every day. I felt it during my campaign, but also talking to other people I got to know running across the state. The cavalry's not coming when you run for office. You don't sign your name.
Not usually.
No.
Well, it depends on whose side you're on.
It does.
If you're on the cavalry side, then the cavalry tends to show up. Yes.
Yeah. So when you file and run in Tennessee as a progressive, you don't have this cavalry showing up for you, right? And that is essentially what we said. We can take this campaign infrastructure we've built, and I'm a tech guy by trade. So we can take this and all these things that cost campaigns a ton of money, we can give them away. We can give them as donations to campaigns. We can go in, and we're not just focusing on the state level. We just got involved in a local city council race to elect the first woman to the Maryville, Tennessee City Council. We are looking across the state at boards of aldermen, whatever's going on there. We know that when we put progressives and build a progressive majority at the local and state level, then it's going to be easy for people like Marquita Bradshaw to cruise on through with their elections. So that's what we're focused on, is building that local and state majority.
So Tennessee is a red state. I hate to say that red state, blue state, blah, 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 because actually if you look at the map, it's more urban versus rural than state by state in a lot of the ways that we think about this. But I mean, and certainly there are a lot of red areas in blue states and blue areas in red states. How is this a tool that is designed to start to chip away at that? Because I think what you just said is the majority of people support the tenets of the Green New Deal. But if you call it the Green New Deal, all of a sudden they're like, oh, no, forget that. You know what I mean? How does that education process work, and how do these tools in your organization? Because I think this is something that a lot of people in a lot of states are trying to figure out right now. We're trying to figure out, how do you flip from red to blue? How do you undermine a lot of the principles of that whole debate by talking about issues? What is the way to do it?
I think you just said it, talking about issues. You have to remember that Tennessee was the Senate and the House and the governor's mansion a little earlier were all held by Democrats until 2010. This is this supermajority of Republicans in the legislature is a fairly new occurrence. And so when we start talking about issues, right, and I'll be open here, my mom is a Trump rally attending Republican living in Tennessee, right? She's pro-choice. She's pro the environment. She believes that we need wholesale immigration reform, that we need a path to citizenship for people, and you'll find that
How
same.
does this add up?
That's
How
yeah.
does this add up?
Well, that's what you get from Tennessee Republicans. You
Does
get.
your mom put ketchup and mustard on things at the same time?
I don't know the answer to that.
It's like, some people do that.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of good. But what I'm saying is that, like, how does that add up in somebody's mind? Is it they like the personality of a Donald Trump, which also boggles my mind, but is it that kind of a thing, or what's the deal going on here?
Well, I'll tell you what happens. It's this spiral, and it happens all across the country. You label a place rural or a red state, or you apply one of these labels, and then you run data against that label. And if you run data against the red state label, you get an overwhelming majority in Tennessee. Then what happens is the other side, in this case, maybe the Democratic Party or others, pull money out of that state. So now there's no money or resources to talk about issues, to bring up, hey, this candidate over here actually is closer aligned to your values, and lead the battlefield, which is exactly what has happened in Tennessee.
It's almost as if politics is hurting the equation in a certain kind of a way, or at least this sort of branding that we do of politics.
Right. They call it a level 2, category 2 chaotic system, that if you, by observing it, it actually changes the outcome. It's not like the weather, right? So observing something and commenting on it and doing.
I don't know. My trick knee certainly knows when it's going to rain. I'm sorry. Listen, can we talk a little bit about Marquita? Because how does this translate to what I think is a very strong progressive candidate who is extraordinary, because she is so. When I remember our interview, she was so incredibly determined. She was so incredibly focused, but she also was very soft-spoken, very approachable, very humble, and she had this incredible way of presenting the issues that just felt very deeply human, and didn't feel that sort of partisan feeling whenever you listen to Chuck Schumer, or you shouldn't listen to Chuck Schumer. But yeah, talk to me about that.
So Marquita impressed me because she would get in her car in Memphis after working all day, and she would drive across the state just to attend the last few minutes of events in Knoxville. And when I saw that, I thought to myself, wow, who is this person that is putting her heart and soul into this, when the cavalry, right, is saying we're going with this other person. When you talk to anybody that is into politics, they said, "Oh, this is our nominee," back in January. And actually, when I endorsed Marquita in April, I got a lot of phone calls saying, "Hey, you've made a bad decision here, miscalculated," and I said, "I don't think so. I think that she is the right person, and is the one that's going to put the work in, is the one that has the heart for this."
Your dog agrees with you. I can hear in the background right
Whenever
now.
we start talking about Marquita,
excited about the race. So, but let me ask you this. I think this is the question on so many people's minds, because it's been so deeply written. Now, look, I'm here in rural PA. Rural PA is about as Trump country as you can get. If I go out there and talk to my neighbors about fishing, we agree. We talk about hunting, we agree. We talk about the trees, pretty much agree. But there's Trump signs everywhere. And for me, as a Jew, as a person of a different political stripe, and I know when I meet those white supremacists in the streets, they know I'm not like them. And there's a very, very clear moment of, we could kill you right now. And that exists across the board, whether you're Jewish, of course, if you're Black, if you're Latino, if you're Asian, if you're gay, those people will all of a sudden be a potentially terminal threat to you in your life. How is it, and we talk about this on this program a lot, that we can begin to change this awful, 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 overt racism? Because the truth of the matter is, when we had covert racism, it was incredibly dangerous. Now we have overt racism being a fatal threat You're tuned in to Staying Home, your revolutionary guide to the Green New Deal. I'm Josh Fox. My guest is Matthew Park. We're talking about change Tennessee. How do we change the country on these issues? Matthew, what do you think when we're talking about that level of overt, proud of being racist, proud of being ignorant, proud of the Confederate flag, proud of the MAGA signs that say make liberals cry again, proud of the threat? I watched protesters getting maced in the face when they're lying on the ground by these vigilante mobs. This is terrifying. It's just as terrifying as it's ever been, but somehow it feels as if we're on the brink of real violent skirmishes happening in this country. What do we do to start to change that from your perspective as a white person in a red state?
Yeah, I think that what we have to do is identify those things, which they're pretty obvious, like you said, and we have to attack them with everything we have. Right? It's not just about ending racism as a secondary policy point, as a talking point. It's about it being the main focus. It's about knowing me as a gay person. I know that if we tear down and end racism, I think we'll probably get rid of the anti-LGBTQ stuff along the way. Right. So
right.
It's about tearing that down. And it's about us that came from rural areas of the country where this is so prevalent. We have to go home. We don't have to move home, but we have to go home and we have to talk to people. We have to do things that let people know, hey, you are thinking something that is no longer acceptable. It never was acceptable, but it's no longer acceptable. We have to have these conversations, and that's the only way that we do it.
There is this sort of crazy thing that Donald Trump is doing, which is he's just pushing everybody's buttons. Mm-hmm. And when you push everybody's buttons, everybody gets hyped up there, including on the left. We're seeing people tear each other down like crazy on the left. Talk about advancing the progressive agenda, and what does specifically this organization do to get that to happen?
Yeah, I think what we want to be seen as, what we're striving to be seen as, is not an arm of the Democratic Party.
Okay.
And you'll see that as we, not to tip my hand too much, but as we move into 2022 and start electing the state executive committee for the Tennessee Democratic Party, we're going to be involved in that and spending money and making sure that we're electing progressives to the executive committee. But it's not just about being a leftist organization. It's about having clear focus on progressive issues like ending racism, like the Green New Deal, and saying we're going to throw everything we have against that. And if you're a Republican and you're behind these things, well, let's go. I mean, we have a gay Republican running for state house in Knoxville right now.
Okay.
Not a progressive, but you can't put people in a box. And what we want to do is we want to break that box open and show that everyone's issues are a little different. Let's stop, putting our fence post in the ground and saying, this is where I stand. Let's say I'm an individual and I think different things about different issues. And if we talk about issues, I think we agree more than we would.
So what are the tools that you're providing these candidates what is the endorsement process?
Yeah, so the endorsement process, we're reaching out to a lot of people that we're seeing good things from, because as a campaign, you spend a lot of time trying to find people to endorse you. So we want to make that process a little easier and reach out to campaigns. But they can reach out to us too. There's a questionnaire. We ask them, what are you going to do? Our questions are a little more open-ended. What are you going to do to advance the fight against climate change in your district? There are those sorts of open-ended questions. Tell us how, because we're not even focused on people winning. I do care about that, but right. I know that if in rural Tennessee, I can get somebody to run for state house and go out and they're in their stump speech, they're talking about a Green New Deal for Tennessee. I don't care if they get 5% of the vote. They have blasted that idea and that issue all around their district. And we're going to give them tools, or we are giving them tools to do that. So we're building data tools. One of our biggest things that we're releasing right now is we're using some of the tools from the Bernie and Elizabeth Warren campaigns. A lot of open source stuff. We're spinning it up. We're encouraging everyone to text every single person in their district.
Wow. So what I'm asking, I guess, is how is this different than our revolution? or other organizations? Is it just because of the focus in Tennessee? Is it because it's talk about the differences?
Yeah, so our revolution's doing great work around organizing, and it's very much needed all across the state and the country. What we're doing a little bit differently is we're relying on those organizations to take care of the organizing. We're more focused on what do you need to start your campaign. Okay, you pulled a ballot petition. We're going to do a lot of recruiting in the next cycle. Okay, you pulled a ballot petition. Here's all the tools that you need to spin up. Here's the types of people you need to work on your campaign. So we're going to do that sort of white glove approach that you don't have today when you decide to run for office. There's a lot of infrastructure you have to build up. We want that to be built up to be able to hand to progressives and say, okay, let's get your campaign off the ground. Let's do it quickly and let's run a strong campaign.
So you can do phone banking, text banking, knocking on doors, organizing for volunteers?
Yeah, so we're not going to do the actual organizing. We're going to, we are collecting volunteers and we're helping hook them up with campaigns. And there are a few things that we're doing to talk about the issues in districts that are agnostic of particular campaigns. But for a very specific campaign, we're asking them to recruit their own volunteers. We're going to give tools and money and support and advice, but we're going to be there as sort of a trusted advisor to lead you along the way that you can call at any time.
So talk about Marquita's strategy then, and what do you think her chances are, and how is this operation going to be a part of that? Because I know that when Marquita won, everybody was like, "Who the hell is Marquita Bradshaw?" But it was like, this is a potential, AOC. This is a potential Jamal Bauman. This is a person who is coming out of nowhere and now should have national attention. Talk about how to get her that national attention, and how can people help with her campaign, which is, I think, a really crucial one.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm now moving to my Marquita Bradshaw hat from my Change TN hat.
Okay.
But the strategy there is knowing that today, in 2020, more people are researching the candidates before they go to the polls. Less people are voting down party lines. More people are saying, what do people have to offer to us? And what we've seen across the country is when you give somebody to vote for, they will show up and vote. So turnout is a huge strategy. And that is where we have to continue to register voters until October 5th, where we have to continue to push people out there. But we're also running a lean campaign. We still need money, obviously, so please donate if you can. But we're also talking to people all across Tennessee every day. And one thing you have to give to Tennesseans is we love to talk. So even if you call somebody and they're totally against you, you can spend an hour on the phone with them, running down all the issues where you agree, where you disagree. So I think that the first strategy is turnout. The second one is knowing that people are researching their candidates, and we need to call them, we need to text them, and we need to do relational organizing in the field to make sure, one, they know about Marquita and go vote for her, but two, that they show up to vote.
So what would you say, as the last question here, is the most popular and most motivational in terms of the Green New Deal in Tennessee? And conversely, or relatedly, what is the worst climate impact that you're thinking about in terms of Tennessee? What are the worst impacts that you're seeing there now?
Yeah, so we're seeing all sorts of impacts. We had a huge wildfire a couple of years ago. But really what is really going to get people on board with this is talking about water. And if you're familiar with Renee Hoyos, that's running for Congress in the 2nd District, she came from the Clean Water Network, was the executive director. People care about water. You can look out your window when you're driving down the street and you can see the rivers and the streams and the plastic laying in them that we have. We had the TVA coal ash leakage break. The levee broke. Bull Run a few years ago. We have these huge disasters.
So fossil fuel infrastructure that's wearing down, that has the potential of really contaminating a lot of water in the state.
Well, it has contaminated. We have lead in almost every school's water in Tennessee. And that's from testing. We know that we have these huge issues, and that's where we get people is water. People are so concerned about water, whichever
side. Like the fracking issues. Just like the fracking campaign.
Yep, exactly. So I think that's the issue that gets people. We also have Superfund sites across the state. I grew up downstream from one, and on a totally different side of the state than Marquita.
Right.
And that's where her story resonates with people, because we all see toxic waste all over our state. And it's really, and that's what's getting people in Tennessee on board with the idea of radical change, because this incrementalism has failed Tennessee over the long term.
Well, if you don't mind, I might make a suggestion. When I was with Bernie Sanders in South Carolina, one of the main things that we were campaigning there was water. We were talking about water. And there was a town called Denmark, South Carolina, that had a water contamination problem because its pipes were so old, and it was creating, they had put a chemical down the well to shock out this iron bacteria. And I was talking with Bernie about it at lunch before we went and visited this family who had really bad and contaminated water. And, I said, listen, Bernie, this is not just about this one town or this one chemical. Our water infrastructure across America is in deep, deep trouble. That we actually have to start to talk about water as a universal campaign issue in this presidential race. And he was super into this. He was like, yeah, I was a mayor of Burlington, and I remember how expensive it was to replace those pipes. We got to talk about that. And I was like, and by the way, the water in the bottle is also really bad. And he goes, what do you mean? And I said, well, the bottle itself actually leaches plastic into the bottle, and the bottle itself costs like 10 times the amount of water that just to make the one bottle. And Bernie goes, the bottle? Like this. And I said, yeah. And he looks over at Nina Turner and Cornel West next to who was at lunch with us, and he goes, this guy's more depressing than me. It was such a moment. But the long story short, he introduced something called the Water Act, which was actually, I think, created by Ro Khanna. The Water Act is about a part of the Green New Deal, right? Update our infrastructure. But if we think about a Water Act, this is one of those things that I think will have enormous resonance for people. And they don't know that plastic bottle is both leaching into the water, the plastics are, and also it can absorb things from right outside the bottle. So if your plastic water bottles are next to the paint at Walmart, some of that paint's going to get through that plastic. So I don't know, just a thought, because it seemed to be a very potent issue on the campaign trail.
Yeah, absolutely. And nice pun there at the end. I think that's what we're going to continue to talk about, is taking the Green New Deal and making it a kitchen table issue. That's how we're going to win. That's how we're going to get people to Congress that are going to pass it. I'm a big subscriber to this like modern monetary theory and I really do believe that this has to be a federal government thing. Even though we'll push it on the state level, we'll do what we can. It's got to be a federal government thing, and that's why we got to send people like Marquita Bradshaw to Congress.
Well, Matthew, thank you so much for being on the program today, and good luck. Change Tennessee and the campaign for Marquita Bradshaw, and let us know what's going on down the line.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
All right, you too. This has been Staying Home, your revolutionary guide to the Green New Deal. We have to fight to protect the planet. Thanks so much for being with us. We'll see you tomorrow.
Cenk Uygur is not here today, which means that I will be able to talk during the show. No,
We'll see. We'll see.
Poor Cenk, under the bus.
My God, if Jesus came back, how much would the Republicans hate him? Now you have to give away all of your possessions to the poor. Steve King would be like, oh, Weezy.
Cenk is oddly, scarily competitive.
Oh, it's insane. I play basketball against him. It's just like, how are you good at this?
The liberal mom says, Mark Thompson, have you ever thought about doing one of those tapes that soothe people to sleep? Like Mark Thompson reads the phone book. I'd buy it.
If you'll buy it, I'll do it.
Emilio D'Amelio writes in, John, you are so thick. I love you. That's what he wrote.
Pork Chop Express writes in and says John Idarola needs a new jacket.
Whoa.
Those 24-inch pythons are about to burst out of his sleeve.
Gun, baby.
You know, the two people here said that their moms were both in love with you over Beauty and the Beast.
Mm-hmm. That's an improvement. I usually get grandmother's.
The Hour of Fire is brought to you by Brooke, and Brooke.
Yes, Brooke's got it.
Okay.
Take it.
All
you
right.
guys know I really like compliments.
Charlie Turk.
No, wait a minute. Don't you dare.
Chemical castration when we return from the break.
So that's it. We will settle it.
I want to see this.
Did Anna comment on my tan yet? No, she hasn't. Scandal at TYT.
You're a good boss.
But Anna did say that I come in here today with a fresh mind. That's all I'm about. I'm about a fresh mind.
I can't with you right now. Okay?
She just can't. She can't, but nonetheless, we have to for another 3 hours. I'm back, baby. Let's rip into Republicans. See, don't miss the live show.
That's great.
Tell people, if you're a member, you get the whole live show whenever you want, because this stuff doesn't go into any of the clips.
You are the media revolution. You are much needed.
TYT!
The place is like 95% TYT on.
You guys, the Young Turks, which is my favorite channel, we're getting that message out.
Frank and the Young Turks do an extraordinarily good job.
No matter what mainstream media says, you have to listen to the Young Turks.
All the people who support us on the internet, that's what gives us strength. That's what allows anyone who was in there who was undecided to think one side seems to be winning, they seem to have a bigger army. There might be a reason for that. So thank you guys.
People work hard for what they have, and if you want more, you gotta do it yourself.
Stock stories bring headlines to life in an instant, whether you work on Wall Street or in Wichita. Stock report cards and professional analyst buy and sell ratings help gut check your thought process. Buy stock, take profits, and manage risk. And the Idea Feed is your daily one-stop investment shop with videos that unpack today's money-moving headlines in under 3 minutes, because you need ideas, not lectures. And live in-app chat for when you want to talk to someone, but you don't actually want to talk.
So what'd you think?
With unlimited commission-free stock trades and great ideas from real traders. Visit doe.com/TYT.
Here at TYT, we strive to instill confidence in our voters by educating them with factual, reliable, and easy to understand political information. And that's why we've partnered with Politiscope. Politiscope is the easiest way to understand the policies that your elected officials vote for and against. They also have the same goal of changing the perception of politics and reshaping the way political information is sought out and consumed. Politiscope strips away all the unnecessary complexity of politics and empowers voters with raw, unbiased information about elected officials and the policies they support. You can download the Politiscope app on the App Store or on the Google Play Store.
All right, welcome to the conversation on the TYT network. Tonight, we've got a living legend for you guys. I'm so honored that I get to do these interviews. Professor Noam Chomsky is one of the most cited scholars in world history. That's literal. He's been a longtime professor at MIT and now emeritus, and one of the leading intellectuals of our times. So, Professor Noam Chomsky, great to have you back on the Young Turks.
Pleased to be with you again.
All right. So there's so much to talk about: elections, cancel culture, you name it. But I can't help but dive in on manufacturing consent. This primary, the Democratic primary in 2020, to me, probably was a shining example of manufacturing consent. But I want to check it out at the source here. The way that I saw it was the media had done a great number of negative articles about Bernie Sanders. They had done positive articles about a number of different candidates, but had not focused on Biden. After Biden won South Carolina, they appeared to be unified in saying Biden is the only electable one, and Bernie will create massive trouble for the Democratic Party. Am I seeing that wrong, or did you get a sense that that's what was happening? And if that's what was happening, what's the mechanics behind that manufactures that particular consent?
Well, there's no question that the media, including the liberal media, New York Times and so on, were uniformly opposed to Sanders and dedicated to ensuring that he would not be nominated. That was hardly concealed. However, the narrow question of why he wasn't nominated should be looked at more carefully. It's true that the media were completely opposed, but that's not the entire story. If you look at the exit polls and so on, it seemed that Sanders was counting on a surge of young voters. Didn't materialize. That was one gap. He basically lost two important constituencies, women and Afro-Americans. Now, the exit polls indicated that they tended to support Sanders's programs, but felt that he would not be able to reach out to construct a broad enough coalition to defeat Trump, which is the overwhelming concern for pretty obvious reasons. Maybe they were right, maybe they were wrong, but that's what it looks like. Now, maybe the extent to which they were influenced by media insistence that he couldn't win, it's very hard to estimate. We don't know. What determined judgments hasn't been looked into. Should be.
So, Professor Chomsky, the politics of whether Bernie could have won or not without the media and how much it affected it is super interesting. But in this context, what I find to be more interesting is the mechanics of how the media comes to a consensus. How does the New York Times and NPR and CNN and MSNBC, without ever talking to each other, because I don't think it's a conspiracy, I don't think they talk to one another, I don't think there's memos passed back and forth, how do they come to this same consensus on their own?
They come from a very narrow shared background where these are deeply indoctrinated commitments. You can see it very clearly by looking at this morning's press. So, for example, there's, I think it's in the Washington Post, article on the convention, the primaries, who spoke last night, what they said, and so on. And it's very striking to see that what they say is that there was a small voice, didn't dominate, for the far left, notice, far left positions of Bernie Sanders. And then it names the far left positions. What were they? Universal medical care and free higher education. Can you think of a country that doesn't have universal medical care?
In the developed world, we're the only one.
That's far left. How about free higher education? All over the place. Finland, the country that does best in international comparisons, rich country. Germany, rich country. Mexico, poor country. What they call far left is trying to rise to the level of other countries. That tells you something. That tells you where that consensus lies. The consensus is so far to the right that what is normal throughout the world is, in comparable countries, is called far left. Well, that's an example of how indoctrination works. Now, it's not that they talk to each other and say, let's all be on the far right. It's just, it's kind of like the air you breathe. It's what Antonio Gramsci called hegemonic common sense. You just accept it because it's normal.
Yeah.
The same on issue after issue.
So, Professor Chomsky, I think that's, of course, I think that's exactly right. And I mean, I quote you on it often, and so it's in the hiring decisions, and they hire in a very narrow bandwidth of acceptable ideas. So given that, is there any hope for the mainstream media or corporate media, or are they forever going to be economically conservative because of the invisible hand of the market and this process that we have talked about?
There's plenty of hope. They're a lot better than they used to be. I mean, we've forgotten what it's like. But if you have a nice long beard and you can remember, you can go back to earlier years. I could give you examples if there was time, but there's no time. But in fact, the media today are considerably more open, critical, open to new ideas than they were just a few years ago, certainly 50 or 60 years ago. The reason, I think, is twofold. Partly it's changes in those who write for the media today, columnists, commentators, reporters, are people who came out of the background, who came out of the life of the 60s, the 70s, and the aftermath. This was a period of popular ferment, had a highly civilizing effect on the society. Things that were taken for granted then would be anathema today. I could run through them, but there's no time. And the people who've come through that are just different people. They have a different view of the world. So the media have somewhat open. Furthermore, the general population has changed. There's popular support for what the media call far left, meaning moderate social democratic attitudes common elsewhere that was not true before. And the media have to respond to that. So is there hope? Sure. And the hope lies in where it's always been, popular activism. Showing up once every 4 years to push a lever is okay, but real politics is what you do day by day, which lays the basis for the changes that are sometimes reflected in the electoral system and in the media.
I wasn't sure you were going to say that, so it's actually encouraging to hear that. And it sounds like the culture moves the media, and so you could actually create potentially a virtuous cycle rather than the vicious cycle that used to exist. So, but as things currently stand, that consensus that again is at a bare minimum very conservative economically still exists in the corporate media. So how do you read a paper day to day? I know you read 4 to 5 papers a day, or you used to for sure. Knowing that they have a certain agenda and that they will never admit that agenda, how do you consume the news in a way where you could filter out their agenda?
Well, that makes it easy. When propaganda is hidden, it has to take some work and effort to dismantle it and correct for it. When it's right on the surface, it takes a minute. You know the way it's going to be slanted, so you instantly compensate for it. It's easy. It's even easier in a totalitarian state when the propaganda is so grotesque that people just laugh at it. And then you dismantle it quickly. It's a little more subtle here, but not that difficult. It's not quantum physics. You have to understand where they're coming from, what their assumptions are, and correct for them. And then there's plenty of information, a lot to learn.
You know what the progressive movement needs? It needs a little energy, a little pizzazz, maybe a little caffeine. Oh, coffee. But what if it was Too Strong Coffee? Yes, new TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT. Look, this helps progressive causes. It's also organic and fair trade, so you've got peace of mind that it was done right, and it happens to taste great. So check it out right now at TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT.
Each month we get closer to our fundraising goals at tyt.com/go. We're here to press on and carry on the work that we've been doing that's so important. We appreciate it so much when you help us to fight against social injustice, fight against corruption, to hold the government and the media accountable, and certainly corporations as well. We do this together. So let's build this progressive community together. Thank you for making us stronger and making the whole movement stronger. To make our voices heard, go to tyt.com/go.
Our generation actually has a voice to say who we want.
For the first time ever, we are the biggest voting bloc in America.
One of the people we've been talking about for months and months will be the president of the United States for the next 4 years.
And for a lot of us, this is the first time that we're ever going to vote.
Do you have any idea how much of a difference 4 years makes?
The action that we take right now doesn't just affect us right now.
Discussion is important, but words aren't the only thing. You have to take action.
So that we can actually affect real change instead of just talking about it.
Get out there and take a part in making a difference.
Every voice really does matter, whether young or old, especially young people. Get out there and vote, damn it.
Now, more than ever, we can make a change.
I'm gonna vote because I want this country to be different.
I don't want the older generation to decide our future.
I want to make this world a better place for my son. You can make change.
Vote IRL. Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote Earl. Vote in real life.
Vote IRL.
Cool news, shoptyt.com now has books. There's a whole bunch of books there. You're going to be shocked to find out that they're largely progressive. Of course! Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People, is there. It's a fantastic story from Jesse Jackson to Bernie Sanders to AOC that explains the progressive movement probably better than any book I've ever read. Speaking of awesome books, my dad's got a book out called The Original Young Turk, where he goes from the poorest olive farmer you ever met in your life to living the American dream.
All right, welcome to the Young Turks special election day coverage dropping.
An amazing power panel.
Look at this panel. You want to talk about power?
It's like a smart Destiny's Child.
We're all too strong.
We start a revolution. Yes, another one.
Aren't you excited?
Wow. And then Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, everybody. Yay!
You know, this is where it started in a lot of ways.
Why is he lying? Because these are acts that you can commit with impunity.
Most of us are usually in boxer shorts underneath.
I went with the pants today.
This is the first ever power panel with Donald Trump as president.
We have elected the top Twitter troll in the country.
We have to stop pretending that race is not an issue in this country.
Now keep in mind, racism had gone away until Barack Obama brought it back.
That's right.
They want to protect life so much that they want to ensure that insurance companies don't cover your maternity care.
Turn your passions into potential investment opportunities. Whether it's cannabis, fashion, travel, video games, or anything in between, you tell us what you're interested in, and we'll help you uncover the investment potential. Introducing Doe, our newest partner. With Doe, you can be an owner, not just a consumer, with no fees to trade individual stocks. Doe provides your daily one-stop investment shop with lists of companies that relate to your personal interests, relevant news on your favorite stocks, and videos that unpack today's money-moving headlines in under 3 minutes. Go to doe.com/TYT and download today.
Well, one last thing on this. Is there one or a couple of news sources that you find to be the most objective, that is more reliable than the rest?
First of all, the media, say the New York Times, Washington Post, Financial Times, are perfectly reliable. Journalists do serious work. They're courageous, honest. You just have to compensate for what's left out, the shaping, the attitudes, and so on. There's many other media with different points of view. We can turn to your program, we can turn to Democracy Now!, we can turn to the foreign press, the business press, many other ways of compensating. There's no shortage of information. And it's really not all that difficult to overcome the specific form of shaping and modifying news and discussion that you see in the media. Once you understand how it works, you quickly compensate for it, pick what's valuable, compensate for the rest.
We try to help our audience for what it's worth by simply declaring our perspective so that they know what they're getting. And we hope that that's a little helpful. We're progressive and we don't mind saying it. I think that pretending that you don't have a perspective is problematic.
Ridiculous. Everyone does. You do. I do. We just try to be open and clear about it, not conceal it. Make it very clear so everyone knows where we're coming from. Then they can deal with it.
All right. I want to use the remaining time to talk about perhaps one of the most important elections of our lifetime, this one. So I know that the media says that about every election. We're a little different. I thought the Bob Dole, Bill Clinton election was nearly identical candidates. Mitt Romney, Barack Obama. It's heresy to say that they were very similar candidates. In mainstream media, that'll get you banned. But they were incredibly similar candidates. I think Trump is not similar to anyone else, but I'm very curious about your opinion. Do you think that this is an easy decision in terms of voting for Biden over Trump or over the Green Party or anyone else, or do you think it's difficult?
Well, first of all, I would take the traditional left opinion and say I think it's a completely not even controversial that we should vote against Trump. Now, it happens in the system that exists. Voting against Trump means taking 5 minutes and pushing a lever for the opposition. Okay? That's a very small part of politics. Politics is the daily activism constantly that's teaching people why Trump is one of the fact of the matter, the most dangerous figure in human history. Literally, there has been no one else, Hitler, anyone else, who was dedicated to destroying the prospects of human life on Earth in the short term. And that's exactly what he's doing. Just take the last couple of days, which are typical, opening up new, in this case, a wildlife reserve, a new region in the Alaska for fossil fuel exploitation, cutting back regulations on release of methane. We see this daily. Everyone is driving a spike into the possibility of organized human society. He does it with wonderful delicacy, like these last two decisions happen to coincide with the report that the Greenland ice is probably reaching an irreversible tipping point and melting. I mean, we have a very severe problem. We have an individual who stands alone in the world of any significant person in trying to make the crisis worse, uncontrollable, destroy organized human life on Earth in order to enrich his rich constituency of fossil fuel industries and others. There's been nothing like this. There is simply no question about who to vote against. Now, turning to real politics, what you do is vote against and then continue the work that is pressing the Democratic Party program to the left, in fact, farther than any in memory for quite some time. Didn't happen because they underwent a religious conversion. They underwent it because of groups like Sunrise Movement and other activists who are pressing all the time were able to get a number of very good progressive delegates elected. They were able to change. Sanders had enormous success in shifting the range of discussable issues and even getting the DNC, much against their will, I have no doubt, to accept a program that's well to the left of anything preceding. That's real politics. You also take a couple of minutes to do something that is so obvious that we shouldn't even be discussing. Press the lever to get this malignancy out of our lives. And it has to be an overwhelming vote, remember. Ordinarily, when I'm asked, I would say that if you're not in a swing state, sometimes even if you are in a swing state, if it doesn't matter. But if you're not in a swing state, do what you like. Don't vote green, whatever it is. This time's a little bit different. We have a person in office who is unique in the history of parliamentary democracy. He has already made it very clear that he does not intend to accept the outcome of an election if he loses. Made it very clear. And there are now high-level discussions, not out of the fringe, about the ways he might do it. It's all very possible. Now it gets harder for him to pull off this dictatorial scheme if there's an overwhelming vote against him. So in this particular case, my own opinion is even in a swing state, one should vote against it. This is a unique moment. There has not been anyone like this. It's not just me who thinks so. You can read the same thing in the staid and conservative Financial Times of London, where they comment on and say it'll be terminal if he's elected.
So, Professor Chomsky, I got to ask one more question then. I think he's an existential threat to democracy itself. Bernie Sanders said likewise last night. You seem to be indicating something similar to that. But you also mentioned that he was, I don't want to misquote you, you're right here, but it sounded like you were saying that he's worse than Hitler mainly on the issue of climate change, because it's an existential threat to all of us. Right. Now, if that's true, isn't the entire Republican Party and some Democratic politicians that still take money from fossil fuel companies, if any of them deny climate change and in any way slow down efforts to fix it, wouldn't they be in the same camp as Trump then?
They're all culpable. And in fact, what actually happened, we should look at closely. For the Republican Party, it's pretty recent. In 2008, not that long ago, John McCain ran for president on the Republican ticket. He had a global warming plank in his platform. It was nowhere near enough, but it was at least something. The Republican Senate was considering legislation about mild efforts to mitigate climate change. The Koch brothers heard this. They'd been pouring money into the Republican Party to ensure that it would not commit this heresy. The late David Hoke launched a juggernaut to try to turn the Republican Party around, bribing senators, intimidating them, threats of running candidates against them, huge lobbying campaign, AstroTurf campaigns. They switched. They became denialists. They were all bought off. You look at the 2016 primary, every single candidate either denied that what's happening is happening or said, maybe it is, but it doesn't matter. There was one who spoke at the Democratic Party convention yesterday or the day before, John Kasich. He was admired because he said in 2016, he said, yes, global warming is happening. In fact, he was the worst of them all. What he said is, yes, global warming is happening. he was governor of Ohio. He said, but we in Ohio are going to use our coal and not apologize for it. In other words, he said, yes, I know we're destroying the prospects for human life on Earth, but we don't mind. We're going to continue doing it. That's what he was praised for, okay? So praised that he spoke at the Democratic primary. So yes, they're all culpable, but Trump is off the spectrum. Not, of course, just him, he and the people around him. There's just nothing like it. I mean, there are some minor figures in the world, like Bolsonaro in Brazil, who imitate him. But among major figures, he's unique. In fact, unique in history. So I'll say it again. Yes, worse than Hitler. Hitler wanted to kill all the Jews, the 30 million Slavs. Didn't aim to destroy organized human life on Earth. Sounds outrageous, but it's true.
All right, Professor Noam Chomsky, thank you so much for joining us and for the clarity that you've given us as usual. I really appreciate it. It's been an honor.
I'm back.
Audio is hovering at minus 12 decibels. We're go.
We got a moron here.
And Bob, it's so easily transmissible, you wouldn't even believe it.
I know.
I mean, you can be in the room. I was in the White House a couple of days ago, a meeting of 10 people in the Oval Office, and a guy sneezed innocently, not a horrible, just a sneeze. The entire room bailed out, okay, including me, by the way. No, the room bailed out. I mean, this is a different...
Well, you're risking getting it, of course, the way you move around and have those briefings and deal with people. Are you worried about that?
No, I'm not. I don't know why. I'm not.
Why?
I don't know.
Your child.
I'm just not.
Your child.
Okay.
Hoo-ah!
All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian with you guys. So obviously we have an enormous show for you filled with details about Donald Trump's coronavirus status, as well as the status of many of the folks in the Republican Party, as that party has been decimated by coronavirus. Weird coincidence that they're the ones who weren't following very simple medical guidelines on it. So we'll have those details coming up. First, I want to tell you about two things. As I've been doing live video updates throughout the weekend on these issues, I've been telling you about membership, and that sustains us. But the other program that sustains us is tyt.com/go. So we're trying to raise $200,000. We're really proud that we've maintained all of our employees throughout. But really, you should be proud because the folks at Go made that happen. So. And we want to finish strong, and it's really important to get our progressive message out there, especially at a time like this. So let's check it on the thermometer to see where we are. So for this month, it's 20,697. It'd be, we just got started, but and if you think 200,000 a month is a lot, first of all, it's just for this year. Second of all, it's actually 10% of what just PragerU gets from right-wing billionaires every month. So. You guys are better than the billionaires, and I'd much rather owe you than them. Okay, so last thing about a programming note is really fun on Tuesday, next Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. We're going to bring on all the old school TYT hosts, me, Ben Mankiewicz, J.R. Jackson, Anna, Jesus, and Dave Kohler. He's come back too. And we're calling it the TYT Tarantino special. Why? Because it's going to have alternate histories of what would have happened, kind of like Tarantino does in his movies, if we had made other decisions. I guarantee you will love that special. Check it out next Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. right here. All right, Anna, let's get started.
All right, lots to get to today. Donald Trump is furious at his 28th chief of staff, Mark Meadows, which means we're in for another edition of As the White House Turns.
Made some very big mistakes.
I asked for his resignation.
I'm disappointed in the Attorney General.
Now, Donald Trump has left Walter Reed Medical Center earlier than people expected, and we still have a giant question mark as to what Donald Trump's true condition really is. He seems to be downplaying it for political reasons, whereas there's some mixed messaging coming from people closest to Donald Trump. In fact, over the weekend, there was some mixed messaging from the White House doctor versus what we were hearing from his chief of staff, Mark Meadows. Now, his doctor seemed to make it look as though Trump was doing fine. Mark Meadows, it was a different story. Meadows is now widely known inside the White House to be the unnamed source who spoke to reporters following the medical briefing Saturday, just this past weekend, and offered a more dire assessment than Navy Commander Dr. Sean Connolly had given shortly before. The reporting was initially given to a pool of reporters attributed to an official familiar with the president's condition. Later, both the Associated Press and the New York Times identified that official as Meadows. So, the doctor comes out and he's like, and we'll show you the videos. Like, he's doing well. He's doing well. No big deal. No big deal. Reporters are asking him, okay, has the president been put on oxygen? No, he hasn't been on oxygen today. Okay, but was he on oxygen earlier? No, he's doing fine. Everything's great. Don't worry about it. Totally like downplaying what's going on. And then Meadows gave a much more dire assessment. So now Trump is apparently angry with Mark Meadows for telling the American people the truth about his condition and not going along with this downplaying message. Attempting to make Trump seem like the strong president who's invincible, even though he's in his 70s, and coronavirus is something that would negatively impact him. Like his demographic is the one that's most vulnerable to the virus.
Yeah, I assume you're talking about the orange demographic, and they have been devastated in this coronavirus situation. Okay, so look, to give you a sense of how panicked the Republicans are over the election, today, John Cornyn, running for re-election in Senate in Texas, the number 2 senator for the Republicans in the whole country, came out and defied Donald Trump and said he got out over his skis on coronavirus, exposed himself too much, But most interestingly, he said the most important thing you have to do is be honest with the American people, thereby implying that the president keeps lying. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, guys like Cornyn back guys like Mark Meadows because they think traditional politics is, look, we play around the edges. And we change the framing, we change the context, we change the words. We do all these sophisticated ways of lying. But when you just flat out say something that's wrong about your medical condition, they're gonna find out, you knucklehead. And so stop lying in obvious ways and ruining it for all of us. Cornyn is worried about his reelection. We told you last week, the governor of Texas changed the rules on where you could submit mail-in voting because they're worried not just about Trump losing Texas, which is unbelievable, but Cornyn losing his Senate seat. That's how worried they are.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And keep in mind that it's not just about Donald Trump's condition. We're talking about a highly contagious virus, a virus that he's exposed so many other people to, including over the weekend through some of the, some of the stunts he pulled, which we'll talk about later. But anyone who goes against Donald Trump's lies or calls him out publicly will have to deal with his fury later. And based on what sources have told CNN, people are concerned about what Trump is going to do to Meadows as soon as he has an opportunity to come off the steroids he's on. So according to one source, actually, Mark Meadows, let me tell you what he said to reporters. The president's vitals over the last 24 hours were very concerning, and the next 48 hours will be critical in terms of his care. We're still not on a clear path to full recovery. So that is what he told reporters on Saturday. On that same day, we got a very different message from his doctor. And as a result, Jim Acosta is reporting that a separate White House official confirmed Trump is unhappy with Meadows, as the chief of staff is now viewed by Trump advisors as having damaged the credibility of the current medical briefings on the president's bout with the coronavirus. And I want to give you a little taste of what the doctor's messaging looked like and sounded like over the weekend, and just how different it was from what we just read from Mark Meadows' statement. Take a look.
Receiving notes, he has not received any supplemental oxygen?
He's not on oxygen right now, that's right.
He has not received any at all?
He's not needed any this morning today at all. That's right.
If we just put you down on one thing, has he ever been on supplemental oxygen?
Right now he is not on oxygen.
I know you keep saying right now, but should we read into the fact that he had been previously?
Yesterday and today he was not on oxygen.
So he has not been on it during his COVID treatment?
He's not on oxygen right now.
And Cenk, even though we did get mixed messaging over the weekend, I think even by watching that video, it's pretty clear that Trump isn't doing as well as he wants the public to think he's doing, right? I mean, his doctor could barely keep a straight face while answering those questions. And again, what he was trying to say does conflict with what his own chief of staff, Mark Meadows, was saying about Trump's condition.
Okay, I have an important point to make about that at the end here, but in answering your question, I actually want to go to one of our members as well. So tyt.com/join, and we read your comments as part of the show. Tatiana in Japan asked, honest question, was Meadows telling the truth, or is he used to lying for Trump? Did he lie to make Trump seem much sicker than he is? This is especially concerning if everyone is lying and Trump doesn't actually have COVID. No, he has COVID. There are too many people involved to maintain that level of a lie. No, that's point one. Point two is Meadows lying instead? No, because Trump is furious with him. So he was not lying on behalf of Donald Trump. Secondly, as Anna just showed you, and the video clearly speaks for itself, the doctor's the one that's lying. And he's put in an awful position. And he said the next day after the video you just watched, he came out and said, the things we said were not necessarily untrue, or something along those lines, right?
Yeah.
And so it's super clear. It's the doctor who's lying. And look, I know he's in a terrible spot because Trump will probably replace him with a different doctor if he doesn't lie on his behalf. But you are a doctor. You're not under. You shouldn't lie on behalf of your patient, even if your patient's the president. So I know he's in a tough spot. Speaking of members, these are folks who just signed up on YouTube. Kevin Thompson, Shells, Abidifo Whimsy, there's no way you say that. Glenniel Luster, Jackie Sutton, Queen Moniker, John Bickford, Bill Basseri, Ms. T Velocity, Tea Time 98, Mark Partson, and Brett Whitaker. Hit the join button below. These are all folks who did that in the middle of this segment. Now, I want to go back to Mark Meadows. Guys, I've now read a number of stories where he's deeply frustrated. Just like we told you before in another As the White House Turns segment, no one believes that Donald Trump is as stupid and petulant and irrational and mean as he actually is. Even the deepest supporters he has, the right-wing guys, they go in, they go, no, he's not that. I know he's dumb, but he's not that dumb. I know he's mean, but he's not that mean. He's not going to do it to me, right? And Mark Meadows walks in, boom, right away. And you could tell, even when the doctor was talking on the last day, Mark Meadows, there's a great picture of Mark Meadows with his head down like this, okay, which perfectly summarizes his existence in the Trump White House. Everything he's telling folks behind the scenes is, what have I gotten myself into? The guy's basically a lunatic. And so to be fair, there are no direct quotes like that about him being Mark Meadows calling Trump a lunatic. I want to be clear about that. But based on his quotes, that's my interpretation of what he's saying, because he's clearly deeply frustrated that he cannot get the president to tell the truth at all, or to have a coherent strategy which would help the Republican Party at all. And last comment is from Cable Plasky using Super Chat. I'm going to miss As the White House Turns when Trump loses. It's my favorite show.
Well, don't worry. Brett cooked something up to take its place, and I think you guys are going to love it. And maybe it's going to premiere on this show today. We'll see. But I do want to mention one other thing. Remember, they tried literally every experimental medication or treatment on Donald Trump while he was in the hospital. And even though he's leaving the hospital today because he insisted on it, he's going to the White House where he's going to have treatment around the clock. There's a clinic within the White House. There are doctors within the White House. So it's not as though he's some average citizen who's going to leave the hospital and not necessarily even have the option to go back, right, without doctors and people taking care of him at home. He's going to be taken care of. He's still going to receive the medical treatment that he needs. Just don't let him make you think that coronavirus is no big deal, because he's already begun with that kind of messaging. And it's incredibly damaging to people who do not get the same type of healthcare treatment that Donald Trump is getting right now. So speaking of all the stunts, let's move on to our next story. Over the weekend, we saw Donald Trump engage in a number of stunts to message to the American people that even though he tested positive for coronavirus, he's fine. He's still working really, really hard. But people are actually really upset about some of those stunts, including one of them, which involved a joyride with Trump's Secret Service inside an SUV with him. Again, he's still positive for COVID-19. It's still a lethal virus, and all he wanted was the optics of a president who's not sick, and he's risking people's lives to do it. So let's take a look at what that scene looked like over the weekend. And his supporters loved it. I mean, there were definitely people outside of Walter Reed, his supporters, with their giant Trump flags, and here he is greeting them.
God bless our president. I will die for him. I will die for that man, happily. I will die for him. Anybody want to mess with him, you mess with me first. He is a hero, that man. Look at it. Guys, Gatling guns in here, missile launchers. God bless America. God bless you guys. God bless. God bless the police. God bless you guys. God bless. That was the greatest. He passed right by you, folks. He passed right there. He was there. I swear to you guys. Right there.
Okay, I just want to be clear. The guy saying "I'll die for him" was not part of the Secret Service. The Secret Service is charged with potentially taking a bullet for Donald Trump, but the president isn't the one that's supposed to be firing the weapon. In this case, the president is the one with coronavirus making the Secret Service agents go in a hermetically sealed SUV and breathe the same air as him. It is outrageous. And the guy saying he would die for the president, he might get an opportunity. I couldn't see him in the video, but when he drove by his supporters, most of them were maskless while they were going to sympathize with Donald Trump, who got coronavirus, for going around maskless.
Well, that's good for him. Good for him. Good, strong American there. So look, you want to put yourself at risk, do you, boo? I don't care. But I do care about people who have to work to protect Donald Trump, and for him to risk their lives for his little publicity stunt is honestly pretty gross. And look, what do I know? I'm not a doctor, but we should hear from a doctor who has some thoughts on this. So here's Walter Reed attending physician James Phillips on Trump's drive-by.
You know, the reality is that this was a dangerous move. There is no medical benefit for this to have taken place. It violates CDC guidelines that come from the president's own administration. Beyond the risk that was clearly taking part, the risk that was imparted upon those Secret Service agents, volunteering or not, it's the message that's sent to other people who are sick that it's okay to go out. We're seeing schools try to reopen, and we're seeing parents who have already sent their kids to school with disease. Yeah. This is the wrong message to be sending.
And Cenk, he actually continued that message today as he was being released from Walter Reed Hospital, of course, being released early because he insisted on it. He tweeted the following: "I will be leaving the great Walter Reed Medical Center today at 6:30 p.m. feeling really good. Don't be afraid of COVID. Don't let it dominate your life. We have developed under the Trump administration some really great drugs and knowledge. I feel better than I did 20 years ago." Not in any way taking into account that more than 200,000 Americans have died under his watch. And it's incredibly insulting to their family members to put out this type of messaging, not only downplaying COVID-19, but making it appear as though it's like a fountain of youth or something. Like, oh, I feel better. I haven't felt this great in 20 years. It's great. Go ahead and contract COVID. Like, what kind of messaging is that? It's just so pathetic and so terrible. And that's why we're uniquely awful in how we're handling this virus. So
before he got coronavirus, no mask, no nothing, and not a big deal. He gets coronavirus. He and all of a sudden, all the people in the White House put on masks. RebellionPact.com to go see an ad that's already out, and we're putting it in Michigan and 2nd District of Nebraska to make bigger impact. And that's under videos on RebellionPact.com. So but what's amazing is, so he now thinks he's past coronavirus. That's not necessarily true. I'll explain that in a second. So he goes back to, it's no big deal. If it affects me, it's a giant deal, right? If it doesn't affect me before and after, I don't care. And listen, conservative schmucks don't understand science. So they don't understand the difference between anecdotal evidence and studies that look at the bigger picture. So anecdotal is, hey, Trump had coronavirus, but he didn't die. So I guess that means no one dies from coronavirus. Oh God, they're so stupid. Oh my God. No, over 200,000 Americans have already died, let alone all the people that have died all across the world from it. It's over 7 million cases. No, a certain percentage of people die, and you don't know if you're in that percentage. But you have to clarify these things because the president is a schmuck who puts out messages like, don't be afraid of COVID. I feel great. Oh, God. Oh. And then he goes and hotboxes a couple of Secret Service agents in a car where they can't get out of it. And so now they got, by the way, all those agents that are exposed like that, they then got to get quarantined for 14 straight days. And now This is unprecedented. Secret Service agents leaking to the press going, what's he doing? Is he trying to get us killed? Well, how are we supposed to staff this? He keeps going around everywhere maskless. In the car, at least he had a mask on, even though he was in the same car as them. In the hospital, he's in all sorts of fake rooms. It's a whole nother story we'll get to, where he's going around maskless. When he goes back to the White House, he'll probably be maskless. It's unbelievable how he's endangering people. So
it's not though. It's not though. I mean, I'm actually amused at the shock and awe that you're seeing in the media right now. Donald Trump has proven over and over again that his like top characteristic is that he will sacrifice anyone and anything if it benefits him even a little bit. This was nothing more than a publicity stunt. That's it. That's all it was. And for him, the lives of those members of the Secret Service who had to be in that SUV with him, I mean, he hasn't even thought about it. It didn't even cross his mind. He does not care at all. I mean, think about this. Don Jr. was angry that Trump did that. Don Jr. Don Jr. is not some bright, kind, compassionate guy. Don Jr. is usually just as bad as Trump, oftentimes worse in some cases when it comes to the, lack of competence. But in this case, according to Gabriel Sherman's reporting at Vanity Fair, Don Jr. is like, what is he doing? Why? These tweets, these early morning all caps tweets, there's dozens of them. He needs to stop immediately. Sources said Donald Trump Jr. is deeply upset at his father's decision to drive around Walter Reed National Military Medical Center last night with members of the Secret Service while he was infected with COVID-19. One Republican source told Vanity Fair Don Jr. thinks Trump is acting crazy. Don Jr. has said he wants to stage an intervention, but Jared and Ivanka keep telling Trump how great he's doing. Don said, I'm not going to be the only one to tell him he's acting crazy. So Don Jr. acknowledges his father's acting crazy, but he's too afraid to approach him on his own. But he also can't get his siblings to do anything about it either.
So it sounds like an episode of Succession. I'm not going to tell the old man he's crazy. Hey, he's going to fire me, and you guys and the others are like, I'm not doing it. I just care about myself. Well, for the Ivanka and Jareds of the world, I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So endangering good old dad who gave us whatever little money we have and power that we have just to keep his favor, sure, who cares? So I can't believe Don Jr. is a fraction more decent than the rest of the Trump children. Okay, so, but now one of the reasons he's concerned is dexamethasone is a steroid that Donald Trump is taking. It's a very serious steroid, and one you only give if your condition normally, if your condition in coronavirus is, quote, severe and critical. Now, my guess is that he is taking that prematurely because he overruled a doctor and said, hit me with everything you got. So that is not something, if he's going back to the White House, he should not be taking that steroid. If he's taking the steroid, he shouldn't be going back. You make up your mind. You're either severe and critical and should stay in the hospital, or you're fine and you don't need to take that. And in fact, it might do you damage if you're fine and you're taking it prematurely. But Trump's not a very bright guy, as you all know. So, but the thing that steroid does is it can make your mental faculties have issues. Okay, clouds your judgment, makes you potentially emotional. And people that have been on it are like, what? One, I believe she was a doctor. She wrote in, when I was on that medication a while back, she's like, I couldn't be the president of my cat, let alone the whole country. So, and I took a very different steroid, but a powerful one 20 years ago when I had a medical condition. And I remember being super emotional. And so the steroids clearly have an effect on your personality. When people start talking about the 25th Amendment based on the fact that he's taking that and maybe Pence should be in charge for a day or two, Trump's like, hell no way. I'm in charge. Who cares? Bush handed off to Cheney a couple of times. It's not a big deal. But he's too egotistical and unintelligent to be able to understand. Now he's going back to the White House. I believe there's around 11 cases of people inside the White House that already have it, including Kayleigh McEnany now, and including his campaign manager, and the list goes on, right? So, in fact, Alex Desliba used Super Chat to say nations have as many COVID cases as the White House. Hong Kong had 11, Australia had 13. Alex, that's a brilliant point. That's why I love doing the show with you guys. Okay, so yeah. He's going back into that kind of dangerous situation. And guys, last thought on it, and I did a whole video about this, but if you're over medicating, that also creates a problem for you. And look, this is speculative, but people who are addicted to things can't wait to be not supervised 24/7. They've got to get back to their stash. Okay. I don't know that. I'm just saying he is rushing back to the White House, and I don't know that it's safe for him. But that one's on him. Everybody he infects, I feel horrible for. But if he's putting himself in bigger danger to do photo ops and to get back to the White House for whatever reason, he's risking himself. And most importantly, he can get a blood clot. And then if he's not at the hospital, he's in a world of hurt.
Yeah. Something to think about as we take a break. When we come back, Donald Trump argues that, maybe I'm better suited to lead the country because I have more experience than Biden now that I've gotten COVID. Yeah, they're making that argument. We'll be right back.
Many of you already know that the TYT Army has been officially organizing for the past year. They're making decisions on which candidates and elected officials to help and always coming up with ways to inform people about progressive policies. Now, we want to give a huge shout out to some special volunteers and highlight accomplishments of our TYT Army. In Michigan, State Leader Tara West and Captain Justine Robinson organized the team's first Beer and Politics. How fun does that sound? Look, they thought of this idea at one of their monthly meetups in order to help connect TYT supporters and grow their team's volunteers. Here's what Tara had to say. Our first Beer and Politics event in Grand Rapids was a success. We had 5 new people show up who are enthusiastic about TYT. They all found out about our event through our text bank, and they liked the laid-back nature of our get-together. Looking forward to connecting with them next month and hopefully meeting a few more. Thank you, Tara and Justine, for leading the way in Michigan. To learn more about the TYT Army and how you can help from home or even start your own team, head to tyt.com/army. Check your spam folder for lost emails to stay up to date with our events.
You want to know how you could save money and save the planet? Hello, I got an awesome option for you guys. Aspiration.com/TYT. You plant not 1, not 5, 10 trees when you sign up. You know what trees do? Not a big deal, but one large tree can provide a day's supply of oxygen for up to 4 people. That's 40 people's oxygen just by signing up at aspiration.com/TYT. Sign up for a free spend and save account right now at aspiration.com/TYT.
I'm Mike Shekels, and I'm the Director of Technical Operations, so if you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it. This here is Johnny Greenwald.
I'm Manager of Post-Production Technology. Simplest terms is I deliver the content.
And this is our master control room. We have many, many more destinations than ever before, and we created this room to consolidate it, to make sure that everything's going out is up to standard, so we meet all of our contractual agreements.
Like all small businesses, we're struggling through this pandemic right now. We are doing a drive to keep TYT healthy. We want to be able to keep doing it, and it's been a Herculean task.
Ready for transport.
We're trying to raise $2 million overall, $200,000 a month if we can. If you can, and only if you can, tyt.com/go. Seriously, because we can't sustain this show without you. So thank you for making all this possible.
Where else can I feel as free as I do here to do what I do? And I wouldn't be able to do what I do if it weren't for all the people who have really carried us throughout the years.
You're our ultimate boss. We report to you guys, and if you don't like what we're doing on air or we're not telling the truth, boom, you fire us.
We're not the Young Turks, you're the Young Turks.
Keep TYT alive, healthy, wonderful, awesome, independent, progressive. Keep it all those things. In fact, we have a new theme, Press On. Get it? It's a double meaning. tyt.com/go. I know what you're thinking. Cenk, where do I get unlimited, commission-free stock and ETF trades? Man, do I have good news for you. doe.com/TYT. Yes, it's really unlimited trading. Yes, it's totally commission-free. Yes, they explain what an ETF is if you don't know it. That's what's great about Doe, because they have wonderful explainer videos, and you got 0 minimum balance. You got nothing for commissions. doe.com/TYT.
Today, a terrible day for the internet, a terrible day for America. The internet as we know it is not going to exist anymore.
A real dark day for information, and yet another way that they're bleeding out the democracy.
We're now going to have these gatekeepers of information deciding what we can and can't see, and that's what scares me the most.
Whether you're conservative or progressive or anywhere in the middle, this is the one thing we should all agree to. Protect the internet, because the establishment is coming for it. Don't let them destroy the internet.
All right, back on the Young Turks. First of all, don't forget, you got to vote. Okay, so tyt.com/vote gets you that information. We're just trying to be helpful. tyt.com/vote. Now, don't forget our fundraising campaign. It's super important. tyt.com/go. In fact, I'm going to read a super chat that's questioning us about it, and I want to answer that question. Wavy Purple asked, love you, TYT, but 200,000 a month, you guys should at least be able to do a 2-hour main show. Are you guys ever going to go back to that? A lot of news right now. So, guys, we're going to try to get back in the studio real soon, and then we're going to go to a 2-hour show. There is mainly safety issues that we're concerned about and have been concerned about throughout. Have we been overly careful? It's possible that we have, but better that than being less than careful. So please bear with us, but it is coming soon, and I appreciate your concern. All right, let me actually go to some new subscribers on Twitch, because we're live on Twitch, twitch.tv/TYT. Standard Deviation, SS Schwarble, Cuckoo Chutlu, Deflated Brady, Oze the Yellow, Yerman Zabit, Shicer59, Atheist God 666, Telegram Unlimited, Sofa King, and Emily Blackwell, they're gifted subs. You guys are all amazing. Thank you for watching and participating on Twitch. I really appreciate it. And these are, and then I want to go to a couple of comments from our member section, tyt.com/join, to get these comments read. Meg with a funny one. She said, did you hear Donald Trump also does not have an anus? In reference to their outrageous lies and how they compare to North Korean propaganda. Jackson, so third is the new first, says the Secret Service has been charged to take a bullet for Trump, but Trump can't even take a nap for them. I really hope the Secret Service agents are healthy. I right there with you, brother. Progressive Pirate says the roid rage president. Yeah, but he has been all along. That's why I thought his all cap tweets didn't sound like they were on steroids. They sounded like they were on Trump. And then finally, here's the new folks who just signed up by hitting the join button below on YouTube. Doug Psychora, Happy Warrior Upgraded, Brittany Christine, Caprica 2267, Stick 187, Dawn Palacios, Cassie Chapman, Charlie Herbst, Joyce Morris, Sheila Styling, Jeremy Knox, Big Meanie, Tamara Thomas, and Melba Ybarra. You guys are all amazing. We do the show together. Thank you. Keep it going by hitting that join button. All right, Anna, what's next?
In an effort to spin news that Donald Trump did, in fact, contract coronavirus, the campaign is trying to make it seem as though it's actually a good thing, because Trump now has a lived experience that makes him somehow more qualified than his opponent, Joe Biden, who was actually smart and savvy enough to avoid contracting the virus. Here's Donald Trump's campaign aide making the case on a recent interview on Fox News.
Will we see changed messaging when it comes to the coronavirus, and will it move more to a forefront of the president's messagings and key issues?
Well, firsthand experience is always going to change how someone relates to something that's been happening. The president has coronavirus right now. He is battling it head on as toughly as only President Trump can. And listen, that of course that's going to change the way that he speaks of it, because it'll be a firsthand experience. He has experience as commander-in-chief. He has experience as a businessman. He has experience now fighting the coronavirus as an individual. Those firsthand experiences, Joe Biden, he doesn't have those.
No, this is actually great news. I think this is fantastic news, and the Biden campaign should immediately re-implement every single negative campaign ad that they had suspended as soon as Donald Trump announced that he did, in fact, test positive for COVID. Rather than immediately folding and shooting himself in the foot, Biden should continue on with the campaign strategy that he had in the very first place, which was don't ever talk about policy or what you're going to give people. Just talk about how awful Donald Trump is. Why abandon that campaign strategy when Donald Trump's campaign has continued attacking him, even though Donald Trump is stupid enough to contract that virus while he's president of the United States and has every single imaginable resource at the palm of his hands? Okay, so that's point number one. Point number two, 60% of Americans, according to a new CNN poll, disapprove of how Donald Trump has handled coronavirus. That number jumps up to 69% when it comes to female voters. And the numbers are actually incredibly high among elderly voters as well. And remember, that makes up a pretty significant portion of Trump's base.
Yeah. So first of all, I know this is a small thing, but she said he's handling coronavirus and getting better as only Donald Trump can. Why? like that's such a, you know why that bothered me? Because it makes it sound like people who passed away from coronavirus just weren't as tough as Donald Trump. That's not how disease works. And so, and honestly, I know it's a pet peeve of mine, but it's like when people talking about being really strong in fighting cancer, the people who died from cancer didn't die because they were too mentally weak. And so it's a small thing, but it's grating on the nerves. And I know people usually don't mean harm by it. The Trump people probably do mean harm. Oh, he's superhuman. Oh my God, he's amazing. Only Donald Trump could not die from coronavirus. If that's the case, we should all be really, really worried. Anyway, on to the important part here. Anna, you're right. That means that Biden should not do the unilateral disarmament that Democrats are famous for and that he's in the middle of doing. That's why Rebellion PAC stepped in and did a tough ad about Trump, because Biden said he wouldn't. I mean, it's ridiculous. So rebellionpac.com, go check that out. But Anna, I'm worried about the opposite. Democrats. I mean, there isn't anything that Republicans do where they don't think like, should we copy that? They're holding a Bible. Why don't we hold a Bible? They say tax cuts. Why don't we say tax cuts? They say bigger spending on defense, even though it makes no sense. Why don't we say it, right? So when they say, Biden doesn't have any firsthand experience with coronavirus, I wouldn't be surprised if Democrats were like, all right, let's give it to Biden and see how it turns out. Now, look, I'm exaggerating. I know they're not going to do that. No one is that preposterously dumb, not even Democratic strategists. But at the same time, I am worried that they're going to try to respond to nonsensical points like that.
No, I'm not worried about what you just mentioned, but I am worried that Biden is going to refuse to change course back to what his strategy was in the first place. Because Biden, because of like everything he's emphasized during his campaign, is now backed up into a corner. Because if you're not willing to talk about the fundamental policies that people desperately need right now, like Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, and all of that, and you're just going to focus on how Donald Trump is the boogeyman, he's awful, he's terrible, I'm the better president, or I'm the better option to be president. Well, what are you going to do if you're going to suspend these negative ads? Like, what is left, right? Like, what is left? So I really do think that he needs to change course and not give Donald Trump an inch. This is actually a perfect opportunity for Biden to politicize what's happening with Trump's positive COVID test. Not talk about how great it is, but specifically talk about how Donald Trump is unable to keep the country safe and he's unable to keep his own White House safe from this virus. That's how incompetent he is. But I'm not hearing that messaging from Biden right now.
Yeah. So, first of all, he hasn't spent it all as just the negative ads, so-called, right? But you should always think about it in terms of what would the Republicans do from a political hardball perspective. From a policy perspective, never think about it that way. Okay. Unfortunately, the Democrats do it in reverse. When they see Republican policies, they're like, great, let's adopt that. Republican political strategies that help them win all those elections, let's not do that. Okay. So what would Republicans do in a similar situation? First of all, Trump hasn't suspended his negative attack ads. So what are we doing unilateral disarmament for? Are you insane? So second of all, do you think Trump would suspend his negative ads if Biden got coronavirus? There's a 0% chance of that, and everyone knows it. Third of all, what Trump would do and what the Republicans would do if Biden got sick was, you see that jackass doesn't know how to responsibly handle coronavirus. We can't have him be president. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is a mega god who never got coronavirus. That's why he's better equipped to handle it. You see how responsible he is. Biden is the most irresponsible, senile guy there is. You know they would say that. Everyone on the planet knows they would say that. But yet the Democrats are like, no, patty cakes. The democracy's on the line. We don't have time for your patty cakes.
Totally agree. Well, we're going to take a break, but when we come back, we have some more critique when it comes to Democrats, especially since there's now an opening for them to block the confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett into the Supreme Court. I'll give you the details of that and more when we return.
Are you a politician with a ridiculous point to make? Are you in need of a petulant, outdated way to make it? Then you'll need one of my signs. Hi, I'm Simon Simonson of Simonson Signs. We'll take the stupid, over-the-top, meaningless allegory you have and put it on foam core. So maybe someone will notice your grandstanding. Because this is C-SPAN, and anything that's not people milling around in front of a running vote count is almost considered moderately entertaining. The bar is low, just like our prices. We've got plenty of designs. We also brought you Mike Lee's Tauntauns. They're tons of fun. What does this have to do with the Green New Deal? About as much as this other visual aid he used of Reagan on a T-Rex. Or is that a Velociraptor? Who cares? Who the cares? No one gives a... Call us now at Simon Simonson Signs. We'll make your stupid point stupidly for money today.
Viewers had asked for an interview with the TYT Lizard. Mr. Lizard. Oh, you changed colors today. Nice. I don't even know how you feel about us. Do you even like us?
Well, you guys made me this awesome house, so I'm kind of in your debt. I was found outside on the street, and you gave me a home. Granted, it was a really crappy home for a while, but then through the power of fundraising, I became a person who has a multi-level Trump-style mansion.
You do. By the way, you never looked better, man. Normally, you're just green or just brown, but today you're in mid-lizard, right?
I'm not very smart. I'm a lizard, so I don't know how the science works. I guess this is just my mood. It's not every day that thresholds like this are broken. I'm just so excited. I can't contain my pigmentation.
And now you're showing it off.
Yep.
Yeah, I've never seen the lizard like this before.
That 300 million, that's a pretty good number. We were doing a press release on it, and I got all worked up. And I said, okay, well, that's the size of the U.S. population. You know what our next target is? The size of the entire world on the road to 6 billion. Although by the time we hit it, it'll probably be 7, maybe 8 billion.
Not a big deal. A couple of days ago on the TYT network, we passed 1 billion views.
What the hell?
What the hell?
That's a big freaking deal.
2 billion views.
What now?
Sorry.
What did we do? 2 billion?
2 billion.
They said it couldn't be done, but it was done.
We just crossed 5 billion views on YouTube.
I mean, imagine 10 years ago thinking one day.
We looked at you like, are you nuts? Young Turks crosses 6 billion views.
Young Turks has just passed another milestone, 10 billion views.
Damn.
I just shot a clip. It's time sensitive and it needs to be edited right now.
Did anybody call for an editor?
Need this in an hour.
But you're an editor too.
All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Remember, our sponsors are also helping us get through this epidemic, and they've stuck with us, and they're all progressive. Otherwise, I wouldn't be telling you. And aspiration.com/TYT is a great example of that. They're planting trees. They're helping the planet. They don't put your money in fossil projects. So it's a good place to keep your money instead of the dirty banks. Aspiration.com/TYT. Now I want to go to you guys. Hammer Dan writes in, having 18 to 24 medical staff devoted exclusively to your medical care and your medical care only means 45 is fighting this disease like only he can. But given a choice, I'd bet on a lot of volunteers to be next in line for that protocol. So that's exactly what Brett Ehrlich just said during the break too. Yeah, only like he can, because he's got 25 medical professionals looking after him with all the best products. Perpendicular Time writes in, this is the member section, as much as I missed the longer show and the original post game, I'm very happy that the money from my membership is keeping everyone at TYT afloat without risking their lives. TYT lives its values. If they were being cavalier with the well-being of its staff and community, that would be such a reneging of those values and the trust we have in them. I'd seriously consider ending that membership. So thank you so much, guys. Your membership carries us. There's no question about that. And so does TYT.com/go. Let's check in on that thermometer real quick. And I love your messages of support. It really appreciate it. Oh, there we are, 21,597. It'd be great to get to 22,000 by the end of the show. Every dollar makes a difference. Quick shout out to the folks on YouTube who just signed up for membership. The Highest Generation, Dixon Gonzalez, Duncan Hume, Gabby Mathis, Mandeep Dalawal, Humberto Moriera, Jeffrey Dingle, Devin Smith, and Little Boxes. And then a couple of super chats here. Yasser Lamasugar says, keep up the wonderful reporting, Anna and Cenk. Love the conversation with Noam Chomsky, by the way. That's why I tell you to check out the interviews before the show. Interviews start at 5:30. Great one with Noam Chomsky today. And speaking of today, Jenna Whitney says, voted today. Excellent. Way to go. Keep on voting. All right, Anna.
All right. Now that a number of Republican senators from the Senate Judiciary Committee have tested positive for coronavirus, Democrats could actually have an effective strategy to block the confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett into the Supreme Court. Will they be strong, or will they be dumb and feckless?
One of my prayers is that the Republicans will take back their party.
Things keep dripping out, drip, 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 and the truth comes out.
So let me give you the details on what's going on. As we know, Donald Trump and a number of White House officials have tested positive for coronavirus, but there are senators who have tested positive as well following Donald Trump's Rose Garden announcement of his nomination of Amy Coney Barrett. And also there was that fundraiser in New Jersey. People aren't wearing masks, they're hanging out, they're spreading the virus. And so the coronavirus cases that could prove most problematic for the GOP's chances of confirming Barrett are a trio of Republican senators: Mike Lee of Utah, Tom Tillis of North Carolina, and Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. Lee and Tillis, who both serve on the Judiciary Committee, were at the White House last Saturday and later reported testing positive for the virus, while Johnson said in a statement that he had been exposed to the virus in D.C. later in the week. Now, let's take a look at what the makeup of the Senate is. As you guys all know, Republicans do have a slim majority in the Senate. They have control of the Senate 53 to 47, but two of their members, Senators Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, have said they oppose holding a vote to confirm a Supreme Court justice before the election. The Senate isn't expected to hold a final vote until the end of the month, but were Lee, Tillis, and Johnson to be absent, Republicans wouldn't have the majority to approve her without the support of Collins and Murkowski. Okay, so that's if she comes out of the Judicial Committee, the Senate Judicial Committee, and they have a floor vote on her confirmation. But it might not even get that far because of the fact that two of these Republicans serve in that committee and are sick. So let me just talk about how this is going to impact the committee if Democrats play their cards right. So first off, the Senate is taking a 2-week recess because Mitch McConnell wants everyone to stay away since the virus is spreading. Now, the crucial step for Republicans is likely not the hearings, but the committee vote, as I mentioned, which requires senators to be physically present to achieve a quorum, according to Sarah Binder, an expert on congressional procedure at the Brookings Institution. If Lee and Tillis weren't there, Democrats could boycott the hearing and block the vote. I have more details, but Cenk, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, so this is the bare minimum that Democrats could do. So you ask for a quorum call, and then you boycott the Judiciary Committee. You need 12 people for quorum in the Judiciary Committee, and now with 2 Republican senators out, without the Democrats, they only have 10. They cannot make a quorum call. So this is the kind of technical procedures that Republicans would use infinitely to block a Democratic nominee. How do I know that? They already did it. They did technical procedures like this one to block the Supreme Court nominee of Barack Obama for over a year. So now the final vote at the end of that whole process for the full Senate is only a week before the election. So all they got to do is delay for 7 days. So can the Democrats do the bare minimum to get a delay of a week so that we're past the election? Well, it's a 50-50 proposition. So, I mean, I'm being dead serious. Can Democrats do something incredibly simple, and that is the bare minimum? 50-50.
Yeah, I think you're being generous with 50-50, to be honest. Like, I'm so used to being disappointed by the feckless behavior of the Democrats that 50% is too generous. But I will say this, there's still the possibility that even if Democrats play this right and they block Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation before the election, there's still the lame duck session. And the argument that I keep seeing from political analysts is that, well, I mean, they wouldn't want to move forward with a confirmation during the lame duck session because that's going to reflect poorly on Republicans. Like, I can't believe that that's still the type of analysis that people are getting paid to share with the world. Like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. They don't care. They don't care. Clearly, they don't care. I mean, Lindsey Graham was on the record twice saying, oh, you can hold it against me if I do it. But I'm just saying, in an election year, we shouldn't vote on a Supreme Court nominee, even if it's a Republican like Donald Trump nominating this person in his the final year of his first term. He was a hypocrite. No one cares. Sure, it hurt him a little bit in his Senate race, but at the end of the day, they understand power and they're going to do what's necessary to accumulate power, period.
Yeah. So I hear you on that, no question. And I always assumed that they would do it in the lame duck session. But it looks like now they're about to get landslided. So the Biden's back up to about a 9-point lead nationally. And all the swing states, the advantages to the Democrats. So if they get absolutely obliterated and they do it anyway, well, that does create another problem for them, because then at that point, it'll be exceedingly clear that the American people did not want them to replace the Supreme Court seat. And if they do it anyway, you know, at some point, the Republican brand gets so badly damaged that, you know, how many elections can they lose? Because those guys care about their own power. Those Republican senators care most about their own power. And so if they lose their election, and they're in a lame duck session and they all got obliterated, they might get bitter and go, so what? Or yeah, well, then we'll capture the Supreme Court for 30 years, see how you like it. That's very possible. On the other hand, the McConnells of the world might say, look, guys, we're down to 47 senators. If we keep going like this, we're going to be down to 40, and we're not going to have any power at all. You know, turn around. It would only be if it affected McConnell's own power position. So that's the best that we have to hope for. And remember, if she's already seated before the election, she could help decide the election by stopping the counting of the votes. So delaying it by a week is so important. So now that they know that that's possible, Tom Cotton went on TV, Republican senator from Arkansas, and said, we'll wheel people in to personally vote if they have to. And they do. In order to break a quorum call, you have to vote in person in the Senate. So basically, Cotton is saying, I care so much about getting a pro-life judge in that I'll have people break the quarantine and come in person and potentially kill his fellow senators to be pro-life.
Yeah, so two things to say about that. Number one, it's sad that Democrats don't have that kind of fight in them. I'm not saying that I would want them to risk people's lives, but we can't get them to do the bare minimum when it comes to representing their constituents. That's point number one. My next point is, I forgot what my next point is. Damn it. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So look, you're right, Anna, about the disproportionate situation we have here in Congress. One side's like, should we ask for the thing that we have a right to ask for and then just not show up? I mean, can we do as little as not showing up? I don't know. Let's debate it, right? The other side is, we will wheel in dying senators and kill off more of your senators to make sure that we grab power. Now, that kind of uneven playing field, no wonder the Democrats get mauled. And that is because, as I've told you countless times, the Democrats are paid to lose. The donors fund really strong Republicans for tax cuts and deregulation, and they fund really weak Democrats so that they could surrender to Republicans under all situations and go, oh, well, there's nothing we could do. So, but you guys know ahead of time now, if the Democrats blow this, it was totally their fault.
And by the way, so I remember what I wanted to say. Republicans do fight for what they want. There's no question. And they'll stop at almost nothing to accomplish whatever their political agenda is. But keep in mind that when it comes to doing what's right for the American people, especially during a pandemic, when you have an 8.4% unemployment rate today, right? The numbers were higher earlier, but it's still incredibly high today. Republican senators aren't getting together and fighting tooth and nail to ensure that there's another round of stimulus, but they will fight. They will risk their own lives in order to vote in favor of confirming a conservative Supreme Court nominee. So just understand where their priorities are, especially when they give you that sweet talk about how they care about the economic situation for Americans. They don't care. A lot of Donald Trump's, chest thumping today was more about ensuring that the economy and the stock market doesn't take a hit as a result of his own incompetence from contracting coronavirus. They only care about how their actions impact their own pocketbooks, their own power, and their own agenda. When it comes to doing the right thing as public servants, that's what they're supposed to be. They'll never do the right thing. They never do. They've always abandoned the American people, and we're experiencing that right now.
Okay. So we're about to do a post-game for the members, and in that, we're going to talk about all sorts of wild conspiracy theories on Donald Trump's coronavirus, just a fun little segment. And then what happened to the Proud Boys online is awesome. If you haven't seen that story about how they got played, you will absolutely love it. And unfortunately, the Republicans are already thinking about or finding a way to dramatically affect the elections in Iowa. So what they're doing with the court system in Iowa to block people from voting is disgusting. We're going to explain that. TYT.com/join gets you all the benefits of membership. You could also become a member on YouTube by hitting the join button below. $2 level gets you membership, supports the show. We see your badges. We see your names. The $5 level gets you the post game we're about to do. The $10 level gets you all of our videos no matter what. So hit the join button below if you're watching on YouTube. Everybody else, tyt.com/join. And thank you to everybody who helped and participated in tyt.com/go, which is really important in this time to make our progressive voice stronger. And then finally, I want to read a super chat for you guys, which was awesomely hilarious. In the last segment, we shared Republicans saying that Biden can't understand coronavirus as well because he didn't have it, unlike Trump. So Carla Baku wrote in, so I guess Bernie's heart attack made him more qualified than all the other candidates who didn't have a heart attack. I love that. My guess is that the mainstream media would not have accepted that answer, nor would anyone else. And Morning Demon and Danica Pantic, thank you for joining on Twitch. We love you. We'll see you in the postgame.
You know what the progressive movement needs? It needs a little energy, a little pizzazz, maybe a little caffeine. Oh, coffee. But what if it was Too Strong Coffee? Yes, new, twostrongcoffee.com/TYT. Look, this helps progressive causes. It's also organic and fair trade, so you've got peace of mind that it was done right, and it happens to taste great. So check it out right now at twostrongcoffee.com/TYT.
Each month we get closer to our fundraising goals at tyt.com/go. We're here to press on and carry on the work that we've been doing that's so important. We appreciate it so much when you help us to fight against social injustice, fight against corruption, to hold the government and the media accountable, and certainly corporations as well. We do this together. So let's build this progressive community together. Thank you for making us stronger and making the whole movement stronger. To make our voices heard, go to tyt.com/go.
Our generation actually has a voice to say who we want.
For the first time ever, we are the biggest voting bloc in America.
One of the people we've been talking about for months and months will be the President of the United States for the next 4 years.
And for a lot of us, this is the first time that we're ever going to vote.
Do you have any idea how much of a difference 4 years makes?
The action that we take right now doesn't just affect us right now.
Discussion is important, but words aren't the only thing. You have to take action.
So that we can actually affect real change instead of just talking about it.
Get out there and take a part in making a difference.
Every voice really does matter, whether young or old, especially young people. Get out there and vote, damn it.
Now, more than ever, we can make a change.
I'm going to vote because I want this country to be different.
I don't want the older generation to decide our future.
I want to make this world a better place for my son. You can make change.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote IRL.
Vote Earl. Vote in real life.
Vote IRL.
Cool news, shoptyt.com now has books. There's a whole bunch of books there. You're going to be shocked to find out that they're largely progressive. Of course! Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People, is there. It's a fantastic story from Jesse Jackson to Bernie Sanders to AOC that explains the progressive movement probably better than any book I've ever read. Speaking of awesome books, my dad's got a book out called The Original Young Turk, where he goes from the poorest olive farmer you ever met in your life to living the American dream.
All right, welcome to the Young Turks special election day coverage dropping.
An amazing power panel.
Look at this panel. You want to talk about power?
Like a smart Destiny's Child.
We're all too strong. We start a revolution. Yes, another one.
Aren't you excited?
Wow. And then Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, everybody. Yay!
You know, this is where it started in a lot of ways.
Why is he lying? Because these are acts that you can commit with impunity.
Most of us are usually in boxer shorts underneath.
I went with the pants today.
This is the first ever power panel with Donald Trump as president.
We have elected the top Twitter troll in the country.
We have to stop pretending that race is not an issue in this country.
Now keep in mind, racism had gone away until Barack Obama brought it back.
That's right.
They want to protect life so much that they want to ensure that insurance companies don't cover your maternity care.
Turn your passions into potential investment opportunities. Whether it's cannabis, fashion, travel, video games, or anything in between, you tell us what you're interested in, and we'll help you uncover the investment potential. Introducing Doe, our newest partner. With Doe, you can be an owner, not just a consumer, with no fees to trade individual stocks. Doe provides your daily one-stop investment shop with lists of companies that relate to your personal interests, relevant news on your favorite stocks, and videos that unpack today's money-moving headlines in under 3 minutes. Go to doe.com/TYT and download today.
All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Lots of stories for you.
Yes. So I'm going to start off with some breaking news. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, sorry. This like literally just broke, which is why there's a little bit of a mix-up. But this is on Donald Trump and his current condition. Donald Trump has left Walter Reed Medical Center. He followed that up with a number of tweets continuing to downplay the virus. He claims that he feels better today than he has in the last 20 years. Please keep in mind that they put him on oxygen, gave him multiple different types of treatments, some of which haven't even been approved by the FDA yet. And he is, in fact, on steroids. So take that for what it is. But the worst part is he's still positive for coronavirus, meaning he's still contagious, and this is still a very lethal virus for some people, depending on their pre-existing conditions. Sam Vinogard from CNN just reported that Trump walked into the White House without a mask because he doesn't care.
That's unbelievable. Unbelievable. He's an active coronavirus patient, clearly infected, clearly infectious, and he's walking in without a mask into a building. He has no regard for anybody else's life. I can't imagine being that callous, knowing how infectious. He just did a video from the hospital saying, "Oh, you don't know how much I've learned about coronavirus. Now I get it. I understand it." You were supposed to understand it on our behalf because you're the president 10 months ago. Now you're saying, because I got it, I understand it. And it turns out he doesn't understand it at all. Or he understands it and thinks, oh, if I give it to other people and they die, I don't care at all. And he's not alone. All these Republican senators are jackals. So Kelly Loeffler sends out, she's a Republican senator, sends out a tweet where Trump is clotheslining coronavirus, that old wrestling tweet, but they put coronavirus as the head, and saying COVID stood no chance. As if being tough is somehow related to how your body genetically deals with coronavirus, which is nothing but a crapshoot. You have no idea. Look, if you're older and you're frail and you have pre-existing conditions, everyone knows you're more susceptible to coronavirus. First of all, that does not make you mentally weak. It just means those are your medical conditions, you jackasses, you inconsiderate. Anyway, so
yeah,
secondly,
no, you're right.
Just hold one more, just to finish that thought, Anna. Secondly, it half the people who die are in that frail condition. The other half, it's just a crapshoot. Like I said, they might have some genetic condition they're not aware of. They might not have gotten immunity from a previous disease or limited immunity based on T cells. They might have a condition
no health
that
insurance,
seems minor like asthma, but that is major in the context of coronavirus. They might have a condition they don't even know about that coronavirus then causes to be fatal. But this idea that if you're tough like Donald Trump, you don't have to worry about it. Well, every idiot Republican is going to think they're tough enough. And next thing you know, they're spreading it not only to themselves, but to others and their family members.
I mean, look, they just don't care. They don't even care. I think for some of them, they know what the possible consequences are because so many of their own have died during this pandemic. Herman Cain died. Charlie Kirk's business partner and close friend died during this pandemic from coronavirus. They know what the risk is. They know what the threat is. They just don't care. They don't care. Look, people in positions of power, that's one thing, right? Because again, they have access to things that I think most Americans just don't have. It's not that they don't have access to it. They don't have the money to afford it, right? So what he's doing right now is spreading this message that gives people a false sense of confidence and security when it comes to this pandemic. And if average Americans are, less careful and contract the virus at an even higher rate than we are now, just keep in mind, these people are not going to get the same treatment as Donald Trump. They're not going to get the same care. No one's going to come in and excuse or forgive the insane amount of medical bills that are associated with getting treatment for this virus. And so what he's doing is irresponsible not only to the people who work in the White House, but also to the general public that looks at Donald Trump, reads his tweets about how he supposedly feels better today than he has in the last 20 years. And they're just not, it's going to get even worse. And it's already pretty bad. We were averaging about 40,000 new coronavirus cases every day. That number has now jumped recently to 50,000 new coronavirus cases every day. We're still losing on average 1,000 Americans every day to this virus. So this is not a joke. Not every American gets treatment the way Donald Trump has. And he's just shown us over and over again how little he cares about the well-being and the lives of people around him and throughout the country.
Okay, and then Senator Kennedy from Louisiana comes out, another Republican, and he says on TV, coronavirus, quote, not nearly as lethal as the experts told us it was going to be. They're all downplaying it. They're unreal, man. They're playing with your lives. And Trump, in the tweet that Anna quoted, also downplayed it in other ways by saying, don't be afraid of COVID. Look, guys, if you say it in the context of a speech, not a tiny little tweet, and you explain how the mortality rate has fallen since the disease began, but it's still incredibly dangerous because, look, the number of it's even more infectious than it used to be. That's another part that they're not telling you. One member of the Tennessee Titans got it, boom, 18 got it. On the LSU football team, one guy got it, boom, the entire team got it. Okay, so it's more infectious, but less fatal than it used to be. But they're not giving you that context. They're saying, oh, we fought it. We're strong. It's no big deal. Go out there. It's not that bad. No, over 200,000. Then we've had the equivalent right now of 70 9/11s. And I mean, my God, the Republicans did 9 committee hearings on Benghazi when 4 people died. Every one of them said nobody did anything wrong. But on the 9th committee hearing, they're like, are you trying to downplay 4 dead Americans? We got 207,000 dead Americans, and they're in the middle of downplaying it right now. Last thing about this is, look, he's going in the White House mask list. Already, it looks like about a dozen people in the White House had coronavirus because they were all incredibly irresponsible, and they went with Donald Trump's leadership of not wearing masks. And I have said that Trump is in some ways a political suicide bomber for the Republican Party. But that's just politics, right? So by talking against mail-in ballots, he's ruining the chances of Republican senators getting reelected because they've now lost their advantage in mail-in ballots. But now it's starting to get quite literal. Chris Christie's in the hospital. Chris Christie has comorbidity issues, okay? Not only is he clearly overweight, but he's got asthma problems. He already has breathing problems. Now he's got coronavirus and he's in the hospital. Why? Because he did pre-debate prep with Donald Trump without masks on, because Trump demands that everybody doesn't have masks. So how many are every one of those Republicans going to survive? I don't know. In the Rose Garden ceremony last Saturday, tons of Republicans got infected. That is likely where Kellyanne Conway got infected, and the 3 Republican senators, and there's other Republican senators being tested as we speak now. All those prominent Republicans, are they all going to survive? Well, just ask Herman Cain. And so Donald Trump said, I could shoot someone on 5th Avenue and get away with it. Well, it looks like he might take out a couple of prominent Republicans and get away with it.
There's a video of him leaving Walter Reed, and he's touching he just needlessly is touching the guardrails as he's walking down the stairs, like playing with the guardrail. Anyway, let's just move on. Let's move on to non-Trump COVID related news. Republicans are starting to get increasingly desperate, especially in states like Iowa, where it appears that they could lose these tight Senate races with the incumbent Republican Joni Ernst possibly losing to the Democratic challenger. Now, what do Republicans do once they see that their ideas are unpopular and they're likely to lose re-election bids? They just cheat. And that's unfortunately what we're starting to see in Iowa, where a judge has made a decision to invalidate hundreds of thousands of ballots because of the fact that the Democratic Party in the state had some portions of those ballots, just identifiable information, filled out ahead of time. So let me give you the details on what's going on. In July, the top elections officials in Lynn and Johnson counties went ahead and began mailing out absentee ballot request forms. Remember, these are the request forms, with some voter information already filled in, like names and dates of birth. Crucially, voters need to know their voter ID number. Most don't, and Lynn County Auditor Joel Miller had the state's vendor fill it in for them. I want to emphasize again, these are not the actual ballots. These are the ballot request forms. And they're just trying to help people out simply by putting in their information, like their name, their birth date, and what their voter ID number is. That's it. According to the Secretary of State's office, absentee ballot requests in Iowa are nearly 5 times higher than they were in 2016, and Democrats have requested twice as many ballots as Republicans have as of last week. So that also plays a role in what I'm about to read to you. One other thing that plays a role is this incredibly tight Senate race between Greenfield, the Democrat, and Joni Ernst, the incumbent Republican. A recent Monmouth University poll shows that Greenfield is at 49%, Ernst is at 46%. And I'm specifically talking about Democrat Teresa Greenfield, who's challenging Joni Ernst. And the Real Clear Politics average of all polls shows that Greenfield is leading in that race by 5 points. And by the way, Biden and Trump are neck and neck in Iowa as well. And so in late August, judges ordered 2 Iowa counties to invalidate at least 64,000 ballot requests, siding with a challenge brought by Donald Trump, his reelection campaign, and the GOP, which have been filing similar lawsuits nationwide. Just to give you a sense of the scope here, about 50,000 voters in Lynn County and at least 14,000 in Woodbury will be informed that their absentee ballot requests won't count, and that anyone who still wants to vote by mail in November will have to send in a new form in order to receive their ballot. In a separate case in Johnson County, home to the University of Iowa, as you can imagine, leans Democrat, more than 92,000 ballot request forms were voided.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different issues here. First of all, whenever I see something like this, first test that I use, and I think you should use as well when you're evaluating stories like this, is what if the shoe was on the other foot? So what if the Republicans had filled out the forms minus the critical information of who they're voting for, and would I be outraged by it? And my answer is no, I wouldn't be outraged by it. So I don't mind if either side does that, because all they're doing is filling out both their name and a number that is apparently hard to find. So if they're helping Republican voters vote more by doing that, I understand it, and I think that would be fine. So I think it's fine that Democrats are doing it. When I saw the headline, I was worried that it was going to be an outrageous decision by the court to basically steal the election in Iowa. Having read it now, I don't think it's an outrageous decision. I think it's a decision that could have gone either way. And could their politics have swayed it? Sure, right? But it's not outrageous, in my opinion. Now, is it true that the Republicans are the ones constantly trying to block people's votes? Yes. Would this have harmed the vote in any way? Would it have led to fraud? The fact that their names were already filled out? No reason why it would. They don't fill out the signature. The signature is what authenticates your ballot, and if you do that wrong, then it's illegal and you'll be arrested, right? So but unfortunately, because of this decision in the court, right or wrong, well, all those ballots are now invalidated. Now, when they reach back out to those people, first of all, it's going to take up a ton of time reaching back out to those people and effort that they could have spent doing something else. Second of all, they won't reach all of them. Third of all, when they do, those voters are going to be really confused. And they're going to say, wait, how do I know you're not a Republican telling me to vote twice as a trick? So it's a real giant problem in Iowa. And whether it was a theft or not, that court decision could cost the Democrats the Iowa Senate seat, and let alone J.D. Scholten's race, which is so important. And you don't forget to help J.D. Scholten as well as Theresa Greenfield if you care about progressives winning in the case of Scholten and Republicans not winning in the case of Joni Ernst. So this could be monumental.
Yes, and so if you're someone living in Iowa, share this video and talk to your friends and family members. Make sure that they check on their ballot request form specifically. And if somehow it got invalidated because of these court rulings, make sure that they register properly and they have the ability to vote. The information is out there, so you guys can do your part by spreading the information and ensuring that everyone is prepared to have their ballot count. So.
Yeah, one last thing, guys. We've got information up on tyt.com/vote on how you can vote in your areas. And I don't want to stress you out too much because I think voting is so important. But at the same time, as you're filling out those mail-in ballots, try to be careful, because what they're trying to do is afterwards nitpick every slight potential problem, because they figure if they can chop off 5% of the Democratic vote, that could swing the election. So their lawyers are trying to actively nullify your vote in every way conceivable. So fill out the forms, just take a little bit of time with it, be careful with it, and then send it in.
All right, let's talk about some leaked documents from Exxon. This story's been trending today and gives you a sense of where their head's at. So ExxonMobil is planning to increase its annual emissions of carbon dioxide by as much as the output of the entire nation of Greece. This is based on documents that have been leaked to the press, and these internal documents indicate that ExxonMobil has decided to really double down on its production of fossil fuels. The drive to expand both fossil fuel production and planet warming pollution comes at a time when some of Exxon's rivals, such as BP and Royal Dutch Shell, are moving to curb oil and zero out emissions. Exxon's own assessment of its $210 billion investment strategy shows early emissions rising 17% by 2025. And again, this is according to those internal documents that were leaked to the press. And look, to be clear, Exxon obviously has never really cared much about any public outcry related to their, pollutants or to the damage that they've been causing to the environment. So at a time, it's kind of amazing because they only seem to care about their profits. But keep in mind that it seems to only be their short-term profits. Because again, all of these other companies are like, okay, the future is in renewable energy, whether we like it or not. That's why they're shifting most of their emphasis on renewable energy. Exxon is like, no, we want to be the dinosaurs. We want to plot our own demise and just focus solely on fossil fuels and creating more pollution to accelerate the impact of climate change. The planning documents show for the first time that Exxon has carefully assessed the direct emissions it expects from the 7-year investment plan adopted in 2018 by Chief Executive Officer Darren Woods. The additional 21 million metric tons of carbon dioxide per year that would result from ramping up production dwarfs Exxon's projections for its own efforts to reduce pollution, such as deploying renewable energy and burying some carbon dioxide. The emissions generated by the extra drilling and refining would increase the company's greenhouse gas emissions to 143 million tons of CO2 equivalent per year. And that's according, again, to those internal documents.
So that's yearly emissions going up by 17%. But we're a little bit outraged at the wrong thing. So let me explain what I mean by that. So this is their business model, to create to take advantage of fossil fuels, get them from the ground, sell them. And yeah, they make more money when they increase production. So now the right wing will stop there and go, see, that's wonderful, isn't it? No, it's not wonderful, because that then has costs that the rest of us bear that ExxonMobil does not bear. Now, that's not how capitalism is supposed to work. You're supposed to get your profits, but you're also supposed to have your costs assigned to you, right? But they make us pay the costs. So that comes in financial terms. So when we get hit with severe storms, the American taxpayers have to pay billions upon billions of dollars to clean up those storms. It also comes in terms of deaths and houses that are burnt down, washed away, etc. So already we've had hundreds and perhaps thousands of those deaths because of more severe storms in America, more severe droughts, fires, hurricanes, you name it, it's all happening. It's not later, it's right now. But across the world, it creates refugee crises, and every scientist in the world says it is going to kill millions of people. Now, what's amazing is we allow it. Imagine if a corporation, and we allow it, by the way, for several corporations in several different contexts. The drug companies promoted OxyContin, which was basically heroin. And we all knew it, but since they wore suits and made a lot of money and paid off politicians, we let them sell those drugs that were highly addictive that we knew was going to kill 30 to 50,000 people every year, and it did. And they made hundreds of millions. Their executives alone made hundreds of millions of dollars from it, and we didn't do anything about it. All you got to do is bribe the politicians. So imagine if there was a corporation that went around shooting people in the head, but said, no, it's okay. I donated to the Republicans and just enough Democrats, and they allow me to shoot people in the head, and I make a lot of money off of it. That would literally be defended in America. They'd be like, well, hey, they got a right to make money. And hey, they're not bribing the officials. They're just talking to them. That's just freedom of speech, baby, right? And ExxonMobil had freedom of speech to the tune of millions of dollars that they gave to politicians. And now millions of us are dying all across the world from the climate change that they create and that they know that they're creating. An earlier story had documents from, what was it? I think they were the 1970s, even before Al Gore figured it out. As the leading scientist said it at the time, Exxon at the time, they had not merged yet with Mobil, knew and had documents of their own scientists saying, oh yeah, this is going to lead to a thing where we're going to put a lot of carbon in the air, and that's going to choke the planet and do grave damage to the planet we live on. But we're going to make money. And the executives are like, oh, I'm making money and I'm putting the cost on other people and other people are going to die? Oh, I'll just bribe some politicians. No problem. And that's exactly what happened.
Okay, so you get your pick. Trump conspiracies, or do we talk about Proud Boys?
Got to be Proud Boys.
Okay, fun. Yeah, let's end with some fun news. We can talk about conspiracies later. I'm sure the story isn't going anywhere, unfortunately. Yep. All right, so wonderful people have basically taken over the Proud Boys hashtag, and I love it so, so much. So over the weekend, you may have noticed that gay men on Twitter just showed the world how to fight hate with love. This is the kind of fight that I wish I was savvy enough to engage in, but luckily we have the gay community to do it. Gay Twitter users hit back at Trump's name check of the far-right group, Proud Boys, by hijacking the hashtag Proud Boys and filling it with photos and messages of love. So all these gay couples posted things like George Takei, for instance, who wrote, I wonder if BTS and TikTok kids can help LGBTs with this. What if gay guys took pictures of themselves making out with each other and doing very gay things, then tagged themselves with Proud Boys? I bet it would mess things up real bad. Reclaiming my shine was the hashtag he used there. And so let's take a look at some of the examples. Here's George Takei with his partner. Very sweet, very cute, matching outfits. I love it. Adorbs. Let's go to the next one. This is Representative Carlos G. Smith. Jurek, I don't know who that is, but that's his partner, I'm sure. And I are joining thousands of gay men on social media to reclaim Proud Boys from white supremacists and bigoted neo-Nazis. Let's replace the hashtag with images of love, positivity, and true pride. Your two favorite Proud Boys are here, standing by, ready to vote. And then lots of other examples. Aw. Okay, there we go. So yeah, lots of blue check marks, lots of gay couples who are sharing their love. And I love that. I think it's just, it's a better way to fight these doofuses. Because what they want more than anything is for people to get angry. And look, people who are angry about the Proud Boys are justified. These people are right-wing extremists who have carried out acts of violence, and they should be prosecuted for it. But what they love more than anything is to see people upset and so-called triggered online. So trolling them is actually a pretty clever way of handling it.
All right, let me explain all the different ways that I love this campaign. First of all, George Takei is a god. So you're awesome for helping to start this, and it worked perfectly. He asked the kids on TikTok, but George Takei, after all these years, still kicking ass. And I guess for the Proud Boys, they're wondering what they just got hit with. Well, his phaser was set to stun. He just stunned you guys. All right. Okay, that's such a dad joke. Everybody give $1 to TYT.com/go. That's a rule. Nothing I can do about it. Now, look, let me tell you why this is important. Proud Boys get called racist and bigoted, sometimes for good reason because of the things that they do and say, especially the bigoted part, because they're virulently anti-Muslim, and they don't hide that at all. And they say they're Western chauvinists, etc. But there are some Latinos and some other folks in Proud Boys that are not all white. The thing that unites them even more is the misogyny and being anti-gay. So when you change the meaning of their name and you remind people Pride is a name associated with the LGBTQ community, that's going to get under their skin. And I love it. So their so-called leader now, not Gavin McInnes, the guy who's, I don't know if he actually is the leader or pretending to be. Anyway, it doesn't matter. That guy, I don't want to publicize his name, said, this doesn't bother us at all. It's because, we're not hateful. It's totally fine. Then he goes to hate Twitter, Parler or whatever it's called. And he's like, I can't believe they're smearing us with this slur. Wait, I thought it didn't bother you at all. And why would it be a slur? I don't get it.
Oh my God. But you know what's amazing? That these people are so awful that like normal Twitter isn't hateful enough for them. Like they look at normal Twitter and they're like, no, I need to go on even more hateful Twitter, like some new platform that's even more awful and like less, more like the Wild Wild West. Like it's kind of incredible. Yeah, like they show who they are all the time. Like we know who they are. I love how they're trying to pretend like they're not like trolled by what's happening right now. They totally are.
If they called that the new hate Twitter hater.com, they'd be like, oh, perfect. Sign me up. Okay. So, but look, last thing about this, it's a super fun campaign. I spent a long time looking at all the different pictures because people got so creative with it. They had people that were in parades. They had lovely pictures like this of weddings, and it was sweet. By the way, just getting sweet pictures of gay men and women on social media makes a difference so that it normalizes it. And it's not like, oh my God, that's so crazy. It's like, oh, that's so normal, right? And I love that the Royal Canadian Navy participated, which is fantastic, right? And others compared their strength and courage to the lack of strength and courage that the other Proud Boys have. So I loved every piece of it. But most importantly, when people think Proud Boys, now anyone who has seen this campaign is going to think of, honestly, LGBTQ parades. And just that different way of thinking about the phrase Proud Boys is going to discombobulate the hateful Proud Boys so much that it gives me joy. And I think they're going to be so bothered by it, they might consider changing their name. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, but whatever the next name is, we're going to troll the hell out of that too. So just call him George Takei and come up with a new great idea. Put it in the TikTok, guys, and it's over.
They should just be the fuck boys because that's who they are. Anyway, that won't make it in the clip. Anyway,
you never know.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
All right, that's what we've got for you.
Yeah, we love you guys. Lots of news, as you can tell. Tomorrow, by the way, on YouTube, I'm popping out these live videos and they go up on tyt.com too. So I might even do some more tonight or tomorrow morning. So we'll see you really soon.
Sure you will. Bye-bye.
Bye.